I can just keep running the same hangout.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. So anyway, we're back online now, or should be in theory.
Right.
Yeah, you know, had 20 some odd viewers, and apparently there's nothing else going on at the moment, so I figured why not.
Okay.
So anyway, Speedolite light drives, that weird NASA thing with their quasi-enterprise looking warp ship that's completely hypothetical was kind of where we were going.
Maybe that's the design they would like to have if they had a warp drive to put in it.
I'm thinking that's what they're going with.
Yeah.
I've got to read this to you because it's freaking hysterical. Help if I put my glasses on because my eyes are a little fuzzy today. When I've been looking in the yard a lot, where did I put them? Oh, well, I'll just have to lean in closer. When I've been working in the yard a lot, you know, I get like dust in my eyes and it kind of lasts for a few days. This is from Conservapedia under E equals MC squared.
Oh boy.
E equals mc squared is Einstein's famous formula, which asserts the energy E, which makes up matter, makes up the matter in an unmoving object. The energy E, which makes up the matter in an unmoving object, is equal to the square of the speed of light, c squared, times the mass m of that body. The complete form, when applied to moving objects, is E squared equals, well, it's just a variation. Okay, which is still incorrect. Still incorrect. Where's the first incorrect? Oh, well, no, that's just... Okay, it is a statement that purports to relate all matter to energy. In fact, no theory has successfully unified laws governing mass, i.e. gravity, with the laws governing light, i.e. electromagnetism. And numerous attempts to derive E equals mc squared in both of its forms in general from the first principles have failed. Political pressure, however, has since made it impossible for anyone pursuing an academic career in science to even question the validity of this nonsense equation. Simply put, E equals mc squared is a liberal claptrap. In bold.
Real?
Wow.
There is so much wrong with that paragraph, including the famous formula which asserts that energy, which makes up the matter in an unmoving object, where it, as I mentioned, it says is still incorrect, and yet they didn't.
So E equals mc squared is a liberal conspiracy, is what it's saying.
Yes, it is.
Oh, for frick's sake.
And it, you know, and you don't have to have a unified theory to have E equals mc squared. There is it says the claim that E equals mc squared has never yielded anything of value and has been used as a redefinition of energy for pseudoscientific purposes by non-scientific journals. Claims can not only be...
Wasn't there like a bomb that went off that kind of proved?
Yeah. Claims can be found not only on liberal second-tier college websites, but at those of Baylor and MIT, that the equation is used in nuclear power generation and nuclear weapons. I probably should say nuclear, given Conservapedia, so I'm going to do that. Nuclear fusion and nuclear fission and speculations about antimatter. This is fucking hysterical. E equals M, simply put, the best line in the whole thing, simply put, E equals mc squared is literal claptrap.
All I'm saying is, I knew it.
Oh my goodness. This is as good as the, somewhere here in Conservapedia, I've got the link elsewhere.
I have not looked at that website. I don't think I should. Well, maybe I should just for laughing.
There's actually a point here where it does suggest that volcanoes possibly moved animals from one place to another after Noah's Ark.
Kangaroo cannon.
Well, it actually says that in Conservapedia. It does.
I think air friction would have burned it up if the initial launch did.
Yeah, it's
the
just
air was
hysterical.
less frictious back then.
Oh,
Yeah, see, there's always an explanation.
They
for
had
example,
they had a low orbital thingy going on there. I guess.
For example,
Yeah.
they take like the concepts of Pangea, or you know, the idea of there was one giant continent at one time. They take that to say, whoa, that was right before the flood. See, there was one continent, so everything was like really close by, so they could just trot on over to where
yeah, and then the flood came, and over the course of a few minutes, moved all those continents without boiling off the world's oceans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Becky, was you in Fiona's thing about the flood, science of the flood?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, okay.
I was.
I wasn't sure.
No, I don't think I was in that one. I was in the other one.
And I think some of that was addressed in there about
Yeah.
the continents anything to try to fit these models that these people are coming up with will result in total destruction of the earth.
Yeah.
You know,
And
pretty
what-
much. You know,
What bugs me about this is that, okay, fine, believe it. I don't have a problem with that. Yet as long as you don't put it in the schools as science.
Yeah, no shit.
But if God can do anything, and God chose this method to eradicate all the evil on earth and start all over again, and one does have to wonder why God hasn't done that several times, considering how we've always been. Why did he choose that moment? I don't know. But, God could choose whatever moment God wants. So if God decided to choose that moment and that method to eradicate the evil on the earth and start all over again, then why don't you just say it was a miracle?
Yeah,
Why do you have to keep twisting science
Yep.
to make it fit? Because it shouldn't make any difference. And there are Christians who will say that. You should just simply say, look, it was a miracle. I don't understand how it was done. I read the Bible. I believe that the fountains of deep erupted and all that because that's what the Bible says. I don't know why there's no evidence of that today, no convincing evidence of that today. However, perhaps in the future we will find evidence. On the other hand, because it's just a miracle, maybe there just isn't any evidence. Maybe God just wanted it to be a mystery. And
yeah, it's like one thing they want to try to make it more acceptable. Like someone said that like the fundies maybe are so afraid that the church is losing ground, so they go, okay, well let's go with the scientific approach, and maybe that will bring in more people, more secular people.
But they're losing people because
and
of that.
It makes it even worse.
Yeah, because the polls show, recent polls have shown of young people, of the millennials, that there are two major things that are pushing them away from the church. One is the treatment of LGBT people, because younger people, yes, there's still a lot of bullying and stuff like that, but at the basis, they don't really care. They don't see what the big fuss is over somebody being gay. And the other thing is the misrepresentation of science. Because they look at what they're being taught, and they look at, they're raised with Answers in Genesis and these ridiculous books. I have a couple of them. Oh, and there is, by the way, I have to find this for people who are interested. I think it's Liberty University has, iTunes,
Sorry.
for those of you who don't know, I can't believe it, but iTunes has what's called iTunes iTunes University. And iTunes is free to download on whatever you want. And iTunes University has a bunch of lectures from legitimate universities all over the world. And there are some lectures, there's some really cool stuff there. I found and it's like an entire semester of lectures on different subjects, or entire quarter, depending. I found a semester on geology from Liberty University.
Oh, I hate to think what kind of train wreck that.
I haven't watched it or listened to it yet. I don't know if it's video or audio.
Becky, don't. You will lose that marvelous mind of yours.
No, I think I will.
Just rot it away.
I think I laughed my head
She
off.
usually does it anyway.
Well, I have. Here's the thing you need to understand about me is that I have
Masochist.
I have a collection. No, this is a subject that because as I've said, fine, it's a miracle. It doesn't have to be explained if it's a miracle. They're saying it's a miracle to begin with, right? The flood was a miracle. So why don't you just leave it at that? And take the information that looks like it, but stop perverting the science to make it fit. You just hammer it in. But I have a collection of creationist literature, and I started this about, actually 40 years ago, although I did it seriously for a while. So I've actually been following creationism for 40 years, and I can tell you how it has changed, because as science has gotten more and more, accurate, they've had to change creationism to fit.
Yeah.
Like right now I'm looking at Evolution Exposed Biology, or Evolution Handbook for the Classroom. I have a whole bunch of this stuff. But not only that, when they come up with something, some argument, and they use references, I go get the references. Some people are aware that we did a hangout in which Pillbox came in with his book, his evolution book. I notice he's not showing that anymore. And he says, this is what it says in the book. And in one hangout, I held up a different book, the same same book, but a different edition. Saying, I've got this book. Guess what? I now have the exact same book that Phil Box has. So if he pulls out his book again, I can pull out the exact same book. But recently, and I'm going to do a hangout about this in the future, but I'm still reading. Recently, I read an article. People were trying to say that tree ring dating is inaccurate.
Right.
And there was an article, I don't remember, Answers in Genesis, Creation Mysteries International. They're all kind of interchangeable in my head. And they gave these references to prove that tree ring dating doesn't work. Guess who went out and got the references? One I was lucky to find. It's one of the things, too, that creationists tend to do is they tend to use old references. So you find yourself digging up these books from the 1960s or 70s. One is absolutely hysterical. It's on a different subject. Tried to use this book to say that evolution is wrong. And it's a mathematics symposium where a bunch of papers were presented in 1972. And only one of the papers deals with there's one of the books. It's a whole series of symposia, I should say, that lasts for a number of years. But this one. And I got the book, and the first thing it says in the free chapter they're talking about is that this is not to say that evolution isn't true. What we're talking about is this small little thingy over here. And yet they took small little thingy over here and blew it into a big, you see, here's proof that evolution isn't true. And you read the real material and you facepalm. So I got this book that's published from like the Smithsonian, and it's a nice big thick book on tree ring dating. It even lists like all the trees that they dated, the habitats for all the trees that they dated, and it goes into tree rings and how tree rings grow. It's a terrific book. I mean, well, of course I'm a nerd. and I have another piece of material that they got too, and I want to do a hangout on this with Rictus at some time in the future, because Rictus worked in forestry and he knows this stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, yes, there are what are called, first of all, they're conflating three things. One is that trees in the tropics do have more than one growth ring per year, trees in the tropics. Secondly, they're trying to say that they did this research on young trees, and their argument is saying, well, we don't see a reason why young trees shouldn't be the same as old trees. Are you out of your freaking mind? All you have to do is grow a tree. And I have a redwood tree in my front yard that grew from a seed. Watched it from a little baby. And it's really nice and taller than the house now. It's still real skinny. It's still like a toddler tree now for a redwood. I can't get one hand around the trunk anymore, but I can get two hands, and I do have big hands. So, but no, young trees are very different than older trees. Just to begin with, older trees, like a young tree, often the bark is very soft, so to speak, and they don't that hard bark until they get older. I mean, you can just look at it. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. But then the other part they're misunderstanding is that, yes, under certain circumstances, there's what's called lensing in a tree. What means is you don't get an entirely new ring. In other words, you aren't getting like 2 rings in a year. What you do is that one part of the ring has a little extra bit around it, kind of like a lens. You know, think of like an extra curve. This occurs in certain places. Okay, yet you read the book and they talk all about lensing. There's lots of pictures and everything. I want to scan some of them. It's a federal publication, so I'm assuming it's in the public domain, but I don't really care. Fair use. What happens though is, a tree has lensing, they don't use that tree.
Yeah, see, that's one really bad thing, like what you brought up about why a lot of young people are being turned away, is because they're seeing, like when they're trying to bring science in and twist around, they're seeing that they're being dishonest, they're lying.
Well, yeah, this is a prime example. They're trying to say, well, there are extra tree rings. No, it's lensing. It's different. And secondly, they use those trees in their dating. Not only that, they date several areas in one tree, on top of which they actually put these machines on them that measure tree ring growth. They let them sit on there and they measure tree ring growth per year, so they know how that particular tree, that particular type of tree in that particular environment grows its ring. It's very, scientific and complicated, and you know.
Yeah.
So no, guys, that's a complete utter misunderstanding, deliberate. The only thing I can say is it's a deliberate misunderstanding of tree ring growth and how scientific research is done to say something like that.
Yeah, and there was something about I saw this in one hangout, and Pillbox was in there, and they was talking about the very thing, tree rings. And then we brought up about colonal trees where like the root system or something
Right.
is like older than 4, 5, 6,000 years old, but the trees coming out of it now they are younger. You do tree rings on them, and you're going to come up with a lot younger age.
Right.
But the source is like way past when the flood was supposedly to have happened, and they're using different means to determine that age, because you have to sometimes depending on how far back something is, you have to use a different method of dating, I think.
Right.
What I understand. But see, Pillbox would not even acknowledge that being said to him, and that it was actually there a few paragraphs down. He would just go right over that and keep going.
Well, because if it doesn't fit their narrative, they jump, or like Tommy did.
Oh,
he kept changing the subject over and over again, or going to something else, or
here, go read this link,
And then when he was pushed, he would say, "Well, I don't really know these things." Well, why are you talking about them?
Yeah.
Oh, and one I just want to mention, because it's come up recently.
Hang on, Jay. Let me interrupt for a moment. Yeah. Just as a footnote, seeing as we did just have Nate join, we are actually live. Ignore what it says on the top.
Okay.
Anyway.
What does it say at the top?
It says off air. We're not. We're on air.
Yeah, he's usually XSplit.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is this has come up recently. People have said that ice core dating doesn't work because they found that World War II plane under like 700 meters or whatever of ice.
How hot do you think the plane was?
What?
Never mind.
Okay, I just missed that. Sorry, my hearing. Okay, and because of that, ice core dating doesn't work, because look how quickly that those layers of ice built up over that snow. Okay, again, complete misrepresentation.
Well, there's something about in that particular area, the rainfall or ice formation was a lot faster. Yeah, snowfall was a lot more.
50 feet a year.
Yeah.
The plane also landed on the edge of an active glacier. Guess what? They don't take ice core samples from the edge of an active glacier because it's an active glacier.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to cut in for a moment. So, Jade.
Yeah.
Okay. The soapbox. Can I have it back?
What? I'm sorry, I'm not watching. I've got my glasses on.
That's okay. Can I have back the soapbox?
Yeah, you can have it. You can just tell me
okay, so you haven't bolted it to the floor yet?
No, I haven't bolted it to the floor yet.
Okay, cool. Anyway, how's it going, Nate?
Sounds like you guys are having an interesting day.
Oh, well, I had to hang up before this. This all started when I had a door knocker.
Yeah.
So somebody came by and knocked on the door and did their whole, "Hi, I'm Pastor Schmo up at Schmuckville Baptist Church in the corner." And I said, "Hi," held up my hand, and as we're shaking hands, looked him in the eye and said, "Hi, I'm an atheist. Nice to meet you." And then he goes inviting me to his church and this and that, and I'm like, "Did you not understand what I said to you?" And he's like, "I'm a Christian. Do you understand what that means?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I do. All right." I don't think he got the message. This is that church that sends people to knock on my door like every 2 fucking weeks. Do you think they'll ever get the message? I just want your opinion.
Yeah.
Put your big pentagram all around your neck.
Yeah.
I don't have one of those, but I do have. Let me turn on my camera here. I do have my. Come on, turn on the camera. There we go. Are we? Yeah, piece of junk. Okay. Oh, that's why, because... Ah, crap. Oops. Crap. I don't believe I just did that. That was fucking stupid. Okay, excuse my stupidity for a moment while I try and get back into my own fucking hangout here. Okay. So
Now-
as I exit out of my own fucking hangout, that was brilliant.
Yeah, I
Welcome
know.
back.
We were waiting. For
Okay,
you to
the
get back.
last couple seconds, whatever was said was lost, but oh fucking well. That
Well,
was
that's
dumb.
okay. I was just telling Nate why I was on my soapbox.
Yeah, I have unfortunately one of my cameras right now. At least one of my cameras is being bogarted, and I hit the wrong button.
Ah.
Let's see now.
Bogart that camera.
Let's see now.
friend.
No, I think I might have both of them being sucked up here. Give me a second here.
Ah.
You know, I think the
Um,
one thing about Fiona's Hangouts that she came up with about this stuff, it's mostly just for fun, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. But people that get on there, they really work their minds, you know, and some people actually figure a lot of stuff out, like how much the volume of water it would take to cover the earth,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. And some of these people are just scary for you, but it's fun.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do right now is, as I said, I'm reading
There
that
we go.
paper. I'm going to finish
Oh.
reading it when I have time, but I'm
Ah.
going to actually try to figure out, how that changes the equations of how much water is on the Earth.
There he is.
If it's
Okay.
true. Okay.
Sorry about that. Now that I've pulled my head out of my button, I'm still going to have to realign this a little bit. Fuck it, I'll fix it in a second. In any case, what I was going to say is no pentagram, but I do have, if this will show up here, I do have a unicursal hexagram.
Ah, there we go.
That I
Oh,
do
I've never
have.
seen that.
That I have. It's referred to as a unicursal hexagram. It's attributed to Aleister Crowley, which is bullshit. I actually came up with something similar on my own, and I consider this to actually to be incorrect in terms of the way that it's done, but whatever. And let me get my screen regions going properly here, because yeah, that was fun.
Get all 5 monitors on.
Well, yeah, I have all 5 monitors lined up. I actually have a new one here too.
You forgot the puppy, though.
Oh, well, the puppy is... I think she's outside right now, actually. No, she's actually asleep. Miracles do happen. Okay, there we go. Proof enough. But yeah, it's... The volume of people not getting a clue does amaze me. But, I don't know, we started getting onto science fiction, and I was hoping we could actually get onto something that's, you know, not religious for a change. That'd be kind of nice, but... it seems like the main science fiction that we're going over is the Young Earth thing again.
Well,
Oh,
that's just, as I said, that's just been something that I've been dealing with for a while.
Yeah, I think we've all been
That
technically
and
dealing with it.
the anti-gay folks on Facebook, but you know.
remember, I was talking about Fantastic Voyage coming on.
Oh
and
yeah,
that thing. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's right up there with Forbidden Planet. I mean,
yeah. You know, when that came out,
awesome.
when that
Amazing.
came out, yeah. Today, I think people today who are seeing it for the first time might think of it as being maybe a little cheesy, but back then it was spectacular. The effects and everything. That was like, you know, the pinnacle of achievement in filmmaking, and it was just brilliant. You know.
Yeah.
I still enjoy watching Forbidden Planet.
Oh. Yeah, I do too. That's a great movie. I love the old classics like that. I love the original War of the Worlds. You know, with Gene Barry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I actually got in a conversation recently about the original War of the Worlds, and of course there was the, well, I didn't really like the ending and this and that, and I'm like, no, the common cold, I think that the common cold, something that we regard as being so simple and so insignificant, basically being what killed the aliens in the end when we
Right.
couldn't. I think that, you know, yeah.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. And taking that aside a little bit, how many people here have read the book, again, book better, but still, or seen the movie, The Andromeda Strain?
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Okay.
That's classic. Nope.
Because
Yes.
that if you have people out there who have not seen that, I would suggest seeing the original War of the Worlds because it's great. There are so many subtexts in the original War of the World, and a lot of stuff I see today is missing that kind of thing. Including that, you know, in the very beginning, they have this crater. It's the usual thing. There's a crater, and they're like aliens. So what happens is this minister decides, well, they're aliens. Maybe if we go in peace. So he decides to go up and talk to them. Hi, we're good people, and he gets zapped to death.
Yeah, it was like he was thinking if someone was that brilliant, they'd have to be very high moral standards and stuff.
No,
Right.
no, you have to keep in,
Sorry.
wait, you have to keep in mind that that's not really what the preacher said. Now,
No, I don't-
that might be the way they presented it, but we know, in fact, he went up, knocked on the door to the spaceship, and said, "Ha, have you accepted Jesus into your heart?" And then they, yeah.
Vaporized him.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that might have been it. I think that really might have been what put on there, but, you never know. But
But the Andromeda Strain, yeah, too, is just a brilliant. Honestly, read the book. I think there's more suspense in the book than in the movie.
Oh, Michael Crichton. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Crichton.
Yeah.
Just absolutely great book.
I
And
don't,
it's
if they
yeah.
did a remake of Andromeda Strain, I don't think it would even touch the original. I mean,
Well,
it's
one
beautifully
thing-
done.
One
Yeah,
thing that
yeah.
I want to touch on here with this, though, is we're talking about the classics. And when you're dealing with the classics, most of these there was a message there. There was a
Yes.
real point to them.
right.
Sometimes
Yep.
profound, but anyway around it, they were trying to go somewhere. I mean, science fiction for the longest time was, you take aspects of society or things that you see around you, exaggerate them to the extreme to try and really reinforce a point. And a lot of the sci-fi now is just crappy action flicks that there doesn't seem to be anything to.
Yep.
Right,
no
which is
substance.
why I don't particularly care for the new Star Trek.
Yeah.
In the old Star Trek was real, and a lot of science fiction was more about questioning ourselves as a people, as a society. When you're looking at the Outer Limits, or another
that
one,
was
brilliant, or Star Trek, which again, you looked at. Do you remember the one where they're this planet where the people, half of their side.
They were half black, half white, and the other part of the race, it was just the opposite sides, which were which. That one?
Exactly, and
Yeah.
they fought with each other because they were, like that. But they brought
What do you
up
mean we're the same? He's black on the left side, and I'm black on the right side, kind of thing. Yeah.
exactly. But they brought up so many questions about society, and if you read early science fiction from the 1940s and the 1950s, it did that too. It questioned things in ways that nothing else was doing. I mean, besides coming up with really
Well,
fantastic.
then you have Uhura. She was
Yeah.
just Uhura being on that ship was a massive controversy.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, and don't talk about the kiss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It just, it was just completely different, and the fact that they had a multi-ethnic crew. As a matter of fact, early on, I think the Russians complained because there wasn't anybody Russian, and that's how they got Chekhov on.
Oh yeah.
Really? I didn't know that's why they got Chekhov.
Yes, that's how they got Chekhov. And of course, today we look back at it and we see Lieutenant Sulu, and we know he's gay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
don't know
my.
anything about that then. Yeah, oh my. But you had this great family, even though they were really different. I mean, you would watch the interaction between Kirk and Spock and Bones and Scotty, and it was this really great interaction. But they told all these social tales. And
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a doc. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I am a doctor. Hey, I'll help you with that.
or what's the one I think was in one of the movies where Scotty goes, I know this ship like the back of my hand, and he turns around, walks off, and walks into a bulkhead.
That was fun. That was fun.
And there are so many fun things. You look at one of my favorites was Oh Crap, what's the name of it? No, that's not the name of it. You remember when they came back to 19 whatever?
Oh, wait,
it was,
wait. Oh crap,
they
what's
got
the...
the whales?
Wait a minute. Oh crap, what's the name of it? That was the one with the organism that was drilling through the walls that Bones made the I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer one, right?
Yes.
The Horda.
The silicone.
It was the Horda.
But I'm talking about the movie. It's one of my favorite of the movies is when they came back and got the whales.
Oh, I hated that one.
Voyage Home or something, Journey Home.
Yeah, something like that. I couldn't stand that one. Yeah.
Transparent aluminum. Scotty's trying to talk to the computer and goes, computer, could you...
Talks into the mouse. Yeah.
Yeah,
when
that
they had to save the whales.
But
yep.
wait a minute. Now, however many years later, I can't remember when the movie came out. Now, if you sat there and said computer, there's a chance their Xbox would turn on.
Yeah, exactly. That would actually be a funny take on that, except you'd get maybe all the wrong commands.
Devices, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can
because-
set it to turn on to different commands, though.
Right,
Anyway.
but if you look at just a little side trip here, because if you look at the way that engineers tend to design things and the way people tend to use things, they're often very different. And my prime example is the the old, now dead, except apparently for George R.R. Martin, software WordStar. He writes Game of Thrones in WordStar. WordStar was designed by software engineers, and it was designed. For those of you who don't know, this is before mice existed.
Yep.
So to do things, what you did was you had different commands like control this, control that. And so that's how you were able to do certain things. What they did was they designed it to what made sense to them. Unfortunately, WordStar was designed largely for secretaries for whom the commands made no freaking sense. I took a class in WordStar once, and one of the things that the instructor did was go through these ridiculous commands. For instance, if you wanted to save a file, you had to hit Control-KD.
Yep. Well, then
You know
had,
what?
and there was a whole bunch of them along those, and at the time, these were the most powerful programs out there of that type.
I know, but Control-KD was totally non-intuitive to the users of the software, because Control-KD means keep data.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Somebody just mentioned something, and I just need to throw this out there.
Okay.
Can you imagine Scotty arguing with Surrey?
Oh my God! Yes, 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 yes.
Oh, that'd be epic. Sorry.
But I'm just thinking there would probably be a linguistic gap between then and now that would be really interesting too. As I said, like that, you know.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the one thing
that language.
That's the one thing that I've appreciated about. Well, actually, a good example of it is Firefly. That they cursed in what was it, Japanese or Chinese?
No,
Chinese.
Chinese.
It was okay.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they cursed in different languages. They had all these added little terms in there that don't mean anything in the modern context, but then did within the show series and this kind of stuff. And I thought that was a good element because language does change.
Right. And the thing is, they were taking the assumption, which I think is a pretty good assumption, that the two major languages on Earth would at some time meld, which should be Chinese and English. And they couldn't meld it as much as would be realistic, or nobody'd understand what the hell they were talking about. So I thought they did a...
Mandarin, not Chinese.
What?
It was
Oh, it's
Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think either of them sounded quite right. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah,
That's okay.
You're correct. Thank you, Dee. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, that was so I like the way they did it. So they made sure that there was that element in there showing that eventually the two major languages of the Earth would at some point become one. It makes sense. Kind of like if you look at English, which took in which doubled when it took in all those
Yeah.
Norman French terms.
I think as well they did try to introduce Esperanto, didn't they? Which is like a mixture of English. And
Oh, that was hilarious. We're
Yeah.
going to invent a new language that nobody speaks and hope people want it. That was idiot. That was just
Well, I
stupid.
think the theory was that in the Western world, most people, the most common languages were Spanish and English. So
Yeah, and
that was
Spanish
the theory
and
behind it.
Yeah.
And Spanish is a Romance language similar to others. I had a friend who was a French scholar. Actually, she was it was 17th century or 18th century, 1700s. I get those always confused. French scholar, but she spoke fluent French. And they would always vacation in Mexico. And she told me that sometimes she knew French. I mean, she knew Spanish pretty well. But she told me that, when she'd forget a word in Spanish, she just throw in the French equivalent. And they always understood what she meant.
Oh, that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, but they figured, she'd just go, da 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 da, and it worked. But it worked. That almost always they knew what she meant.
That's something that I appreciated about. Well, actually,
You're very faint, Prudent. Are you miles away from your mic?
Okay, problem taken care of.
better.
Okay.
Oh, calamari tonight.
Yep.
If he,
Yeah, every time
Ooh,
if
calamari
he doesn't,
sounds
if he
really
doesn't
good right
behave.
now.
I just have to say this, Prudent, for a minute, because when I first moved up here, I couldn't get any kind of jobs, so I ended up working squid fishery, packing squid. And every time I see that, I want to reach out and grab it and put it in a box.
Okay. This might be too telling, Jade.
No,
Either that,
muscle, isn't it? You see.
either that, or get the walkout and make some calamari, because I do love that.
I don't
Yeah.
understand why so many people bread it.
Oh,
So
I just
deep fry it
want,
better.
because it's
Yeah.
good breaded.
But
It
fried,
is.
it just fried up in butter, and it tastes so much better.
Oh,
As
I
far
like
as I'm
it breaded.
concerned.
I also like it raw, by the way.
See, I like it breaded and then fried in butter.
Wait a minute, we're sitting here
Yes,
talking. Wait,
yes.
wait. I want to point out we're sitting here talking about how to cook prudent. We should probably stop that.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that's kind of starting to hurt my
Smear him with butter and have him roll in the flour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce,
Wait.
see that white powder over there? Could you roll in that?
Oh God. I wanted to say though, yeah, I was listening into the
Use my
conversation.
name in vain.
Good stuff. To Jade though, yeah, that I definitely understand like what you were mentioning. Like, it's funny when you see a lot of younger creationists try.
Now
to,
we're back to that. No. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Let Prudent finish. We pick on him
Okay.
enough.
You
Let
have
him-
the soapbox for a few minutes.
Yeah, I sort of had a similar like. Yeah, I had one person like it wasn't really like difficult or anything, but Richard Raspberry tried to use that sort of trick on me where he apparently said, "Here's a paper that proves that intelligent design is true because, or irreducible complexity is true because if you get rid of the kinesin motor in a cell." In these cells, then it's completely useless. So he gives me the paper, and I just peruse it for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, dude, you have obviously not read this.
Did it
Yeah.
go from motor to pump?
You can actually, because they did do a thing like where they did a gene knockout like for 4 of the motors, and yet it had no effect on the cell viability.
When Tevi Holler said going from motor to pump, I suddenly had this horrific mental image of Pillbox with wearing pumps and a motor strapped to his back, and
Oh
wow.
my God!
I think I should check my blood sugar after that one. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that's what happened though. They found another cell or something. It had the same
Yeah.
setup with the proteins and everything. The only thing missing was the parts that made the rotor. What was left was a pump for pumping a poison into other cells or something.
Right.
The-
Yeah,
the-
and
Yeah, it was taking the function of one thing, adding something else, and coming up with a completely different function.
Oh.
and I just have to add this to 13. You had to bring that up because I just envisioned Richard Raspberry on a motor scooter wearing pumps and a scarf around his neck and a stick.
Wait. Can we add aviator glasses?
Yes, we can.
Oh, and the
Yeah,
funky
yeah.
little leather hat going, yeah, I think that's perfect.
Well, back in the 70s, there were a group of bikers in the San Francisco area who went out and rode in drag. And they were fantastic. You'd be driving along and they'd go, hi! And
Oh, wow. Were they fabulous?
it was fabulous. They were great.
No, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
unfortunately,
Anyway, yes,
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
D, take the soapbox. Here, quick, take it.
I was just going to say, fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, I miss Richard Wasbury's disproving abigenics with using an egg or something.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's taken all his bloody videos down. Oh, he's privated his videos or something, hasn't he? Because I thought, because I'd heard about it, and I thought, I must watch that for a laugh. And then a few weeks later, or a few days later, whenever it was, I thought, I meant to watch that for a laugh. And I went to go to his channel, and he's got, no bloody videos up there.
But because it was suspected that he was going to do this, there is a Richard Raspberry archive channel now.
Is it on there? Oh.
Yes. Look up, and that's what it's called, Richard Raspberry Archive Channel. Just like there's a
That means
Burns
I can
Archive.
watch his crap without actually
Yes, he won't get
giving
any.
him thingy.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons that the Jason Burns Archive Channel is that, so that people can watch his stuff without giving him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a Richard Raspberry Archive Channel, so you can watch that. One other thing I want to say that is always so funny to me is you will hear, because I was watching a hangout with, oh God, it was one of True Empiricism's, the new one with Veckel and True Empiricism and the usual crowd of nitwits. Because he kept trying to say, well, but you change one base pair and the DNA won't work. You change one base pair and the DNA won't work. Folks, guess how we got there.
Yeah. Hang on though. Actually, I gotta, since we're going with certain things here, Notvik,
Yeah.
Now, for those in the audience that don't know, Nodvik looks like a redheaded Jesus. I have a special request for you. I need a shot of you, dressed doing a little bit of the toga thing, with kind of this, that kind of devious smile on your face. I need a clip of that, and then I'm going to see if I can get a clip of somebody in a gimp suit. And then I'm just going to draw an arrow to the gimp suit and write G-Man, so we can have Jesus and the G-Man in the gimp suit, and then just have G-Man saying, "I'm a slave for Jesus."
Oh my.
Oh my.
Since I'm apparently causing great mental injury to the people that are listening to this with all the mental imagery we've been throwing around, I just needed to add that one in.
I was going to kind of bring it back to where it was a while ago. When y'all was talking about language, like using certain words or mixing up languages, like for in the future or something. Well, I got to thinking about, have you ever heard of a series called ElfQuest?
Yes.
Yes.
I love that series of comics and magazines. Well, remember, one of the things that they would say was like, "Oh, pucker nuts," and it was about yes. And I happened to think of that, and when you say it, it sounds dirty, but it's actually a thing in the story. It's a nut that's real sour. And
Yeah.
they
Right.
pucker nuts. and then in Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Rise of Pern.
Yep.
One of the sayings was dim glow, and they used glows or like glowing stones that were real hot and they kind of glowed, to use that for light.
Right.
And when they get dim, you have to replace them. And they talk about someone that's not too smart, they call them a dim glow. It's like one of the things going out or something. Like using words that we're coming up with for the story.
There was one time period while I was working on, it was back when I was working on the first book that got rejected. While I was working on that, though, there was an extended period of time that I was taking, standard expressions that we have today and altering every expression that I said to, and part of the reason why I was using these alternate expressions was to see if they were still understandable to people. And there was at least one occasion that I got a very odd reaction from doing this, and unfortunately it wasn't misunderstanding. The woman thought I was flirting with her. Real awkward moment. Because instead of saying wrap things up, I said that should tie things up nicely, and her response was, "Well, you can tie me up anytime." And I just uncomfortable moment in the workplace. I'm getting the frick out of here.
I just wanted to say something else though. We keep talking about what we were talking earlier about, certainly when you talk about certain creationist laws and intelligence.
Hang on, I have a question for you. I'm going to bust your balls here for a moment. Can you get on topics other than creationism?
Any topics other than creationists?
Yeah.
Oh.
A few.
Do you watch?
Some of the other stuff I'm kind of into. I don't think the rest of the panel is.
Are you interested in? Do you bother with science fiction at all?
Not as much. I do know a few science fiction novels. I know you guys are talking about Andromeda Strain. I remember having to read some of that for 10th grade. Actually, for a 10th grade science class, we had to do a report, and see how it related to actual scientific.
Well, what about movies? What about movies?
Okay, can I actually stay with the science fiction novel? I was going to say there was one other science fiction novel that I also remember from 10th grade. I don't know if has anybody ever seen or read, because they made a movie about it too, Fantastic Voyage?
Yep. Yes, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
That was... Oh, I know, that was Asimov did a good thing, because what happened was in the originals, there were a lot of mistakes that were essentially made, for example, when the crew, the submarine was gonna grow back to original size before the rest of the group left his body through the tear duct. The problem is the submarine would have gone back to regular size and it would have killed the guy. So Asimov basically said, okay, well, I saw that problem. They'll pick up the pieces of the submarine because it's already been blown up and destroyed. Pick up the pieces and drag them out of him before it grows back to regular size.
Yeah, I think in the novel they had the guy, I can't think of his name, the Secret Service guy. He swam back and started cutting the white blood cell, and it started following him. But as it followed him, it was pulling. It had the debris of the Proteus inside. So it followed them through the tear duct. And as they finally came out, the white blood cell was a lot smaller than them, but the pieces of the sub were starting to stick out. So they managed to get all of that out on the slide and put them in the middle where everything expanded, the ship and everything. But in the movie, the budgetary restraints probably stopped that right there.
And the traitor, like one of the guys in the group is actually a traitor, but he ends up dying because I think he gets ingested by the white blood cells. Well,
Donald Pleasant.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Donald Pleasant was the actor's name in the movie.
Why didn't his remains return to original size?
Exactly.
Well, they was trying to say like the white blood cell absolutely destroyed everything, which was like what?
Well, yeah. See, this is the problem when you try to make science fiction novels into and you try to bring in real world concepts. You really are gonna have probably the most difficult of times.
Yeah, but see, in the novel, that problem was solved. It wasn't a problem because the white blood cell followed them out, so all the debris came with them inside the white blood cell. And then, but the movie, like I said, they didn't do any of that. And if they had the budget, they probably could have. So it would have been exact, to go along with the book.
Okay, so hold on. You also mentioned
I'm geeking out a little bit.
Yeah, that's all good. Geek out all you want.
You guys were also mentioning stuff about movies. Just out of curiosity, is there any movie, to any of the guys at least here, here's a weird question. Has there ever been a movie that actually triggered your nerve impulse to make you cry?
Yeah, absolutely.
The end of Charlotte's Web.
No, I just go to sleep.
Really? The end of Charlotte's Web?
That's great.
I went to see this girl I knew.
She was in animes all the time.
Yeah, we went to see Charlotte's Web, and at the end, we're both sitting there bawling.
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird. I think for me, I let out a couple of tears to the end of Titanic, and I didn't see it literally until about 2 years ago. I should have seen it a lot earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's some scenes in some movies that are just about bringing your tears because they touch something inside of you.
I know.
You can kind of really relate to the moment or something.
Well, there was, oh man, what was the name of that Star Trek movie? The crossover one that they had Kirk in. That you have that weird ribbon going towards the planet.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? And it goes and and you see the Enterprise crash and blow up and all this other stuff, and everyone's fucking dead. Man, I cried so much when it turned out they weren't dead and they brought them all back. I was so upset.
They went into that place called the Nexus or something.
Yeah.
Time really didn't mean anything.
Yeah, but I was upset when it turned out everyone wasn't dead. I was very disappointed by that.
Oh.
I actually, it's funny because I'm joking about this, but literally I watched it, and once the Enterprise blew up, I literally walked out of the theater, and there was an usher there saying, "Do you want your money back?" I'm like, "No, I came here to see what I wanted."
Yeah, and that's when Deanna, the lady that played Deanna Troy, really got it because we finally let her drive the ship and she crashes it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, here's another question. Anybody watching any of the World Cup stuff going on right now?
Nope.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, I'm not really so much. I don't really care much about soccer, but the World Cup is kind of a cool event. Here's the weird part. Apparently, you know how there are like some popular YouTubers who probably don't use Google Plus that much, but you add them to your circles anyway. I added, I think, Wildwood Clear 1 to my circle, and all she keeps talking about is all this World Cup stuff.
Okay.
I've never added anyone to my circle. I've only added them back.
The fuck?
Claire loves football. Soccer.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how we got from Andromeda's Strain to soccer, but okay.
Yeah, soccer, it could be pretty boring at times, but...
Dude, you're just like super random today.
Yeah, that's what I like to be. That's what it's all about, man. Well, there is sort of one thing with the World Cup thing. One of the teams is actually Croatia. That's actually where my mom is from, so that's kind of cool.
Okay.
Oh, really? My neighbors are from Croatia. I live in a part of California where there are a lot of Croatians.
No kidding. Nice.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my one neighbor actually was born and raised in Croatia. And her husband is half Croatian, half Italian. But yeah, no, there are a lot of Croatians in the Watsonville, California area. And I live near Watsonville. a lot of the farms here are run by people who are of Croatian ancestry. You know how it is here in the United States. You know, a couple families come over, say, "Hey, come here," and you end up with this whole group of whatever ancestry. We also have a lot of people here from the Azores, you know, who are Portuguese.
Okay.
But they're from the Azores. So anyway,
Well,
yeah.
well, before we start getting on soccer again, seeing as I absolutely hate soccer at this very moment. There was a time not too long ago that after running one of the role-playing games, I had a post-game hangout. What I didn't realize is that there was also a soccer game that was going on that same day. So in my post-role-playing game hangout, I had like 1,000 people descend upon my channel to say, "Oh, Brazil, Brazil, Brazil!" Blah blah blah. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh,
I got
is
like
that what that was
5,000 comments. They were like all spammed because it was rapid fire comments, the same shit over and over. Massive trolling because they were assuming it was some American talking about the soccer game and no one could understand, you know, none of them knew English well enough to know what we were talking about. Yeah.
I just noticed in the comments, Xbox Fiend mentioned about he got all emotional about Rose Tyler in the recent Doctor Who series.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
that
her
was
and the Doctor had a thing going, and how tragic it was and everything.
that was. I actually think the way they handled that was pretty good. Now, granted, there's holes in the new Who big enough to drive a frickin' truck through.
Yeah.
But at the same
I
point,
haven't seen the latest one though.
well, but at the same point with the way that they sit there and they put in all these different elements and then try to pull them together at the end, it puts me in the position of looking at it and saying, okay, and as I'm going through it, trying to predict what they're going to do for their end game, and I think that's fun. I'm really enjoying it in that sense.
Yeah, Matt Smith surprised me. I really enjoyed his time as a Doctor, and when they introduced River Song,
Yeah.
wow.
They,
the actress, and I mean, just the whole thing was
the attitude and the I think one of my favorites was that story arc where at the end of it she's sitting there and the Daleks, they're like, "You are a companion of the Doctor," blah blah, and she's like, I'm Dr. River Song. Look me up. Mercy, mercy. That was fucking hilarious.
That kind of went back to when they first met, when he first met the future her.
Yeah.
You know, where she died in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor used that against those things in the dark. He said, "This is the galaxy's biggest universe. My name is the Doctor. Look me up."
The
And then they backed away from him.
Vestra Narada or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I know Doctor Who is not what you would kind of really consider serious science fiction, but it's fun.
But it also appeals to a wider audience than strict sci-fi. I mean, what I was getting to a little bit earlier with this is that, you know, in the early days, a lot of science fiction was used to, you know, drive home a moral message, or if we keep on this trajectory, this is, you know, this whole kind of thing. But there's three different basic things of sci-fi, one of which is focused on the science, one which is focused on the moral stories, and the third, which is, you know, the speculative fiction. You know, the alternate timelines, what would happen if Germany won the war kind of thing. And this is the third one. And these are the three that are really emphasized. And if it's some kind of hybrid or something that doesn't really fall into these, or heaven forbid character-driven, then the publishers don't want a damn thing to do with it because, oh no, this might be taking a risk. It must be all about the science, which to me is boring as shit. Or, you know, yeah, go for it.
I was going to say Blade Runner was the first sci-fi film I ever saw that I recall.
Well, Blade Runner was really kind of focused on the science aspect of it, but they still allowed it to be character-driven, and I think that's what made it enjoyable, and I think you need a mix. Part of why I didn't really care for a lot of stuff written by Isaac Asimov is that, so, you know, Foundation, well, you know, not bad, but then you have to drudge through all that economics.
Oh, God.
I've never actually read any of his books, but that's based on his Do Electric Sheep. No, do Androids Count Electric Sheep or something? Is that the name of the original book?
And there's a knock at the door. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
Door knocker. Let them in.
Yeah,
I've not actually read the sci-fi books, to be honest.
No, this is an invited door knocker.
Oh, okay.
This is a welcomed one.
I think the first sci-fi book I ever read, I can't remember if it's the name of the book, but I know
No wonder.
the film was made into a film called The Man Who Fell to Earth, but I can't remember if that's what the actual sci-fi
Freddie
book's
Moon.
called.
Yeah, that the Man Who Fell to Earth. That's the one that the with the vampires. Yeah.
Oh no, I don't recall. Oh,
No, it's not
oh,
exactly
yeah.
that, but I'm sorry. But yeah, no, you're right. I was trying to talk, and I accidentally got muted as I was trying to
Oh,
get Freddie
sorry.
out of my lap. No, it's not your fault. But no, it's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. You're right.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
You are correct. That was the basis of Blade Runner. I did want to ask one thing though, because I got kicked out right after I did it. Did you see the link that I put about genetic? What is it called?
Genetically ginger.
Yeah, that's the one. I put it in the outside chat as well. It's a very short video. The Royal Society did a advent calendar, a chromosomal advent calendar, which is really cool. So like for 24 days each day, they focused on a particular gene. And this one, it talks about, and the guy's red-haired too, which is fun. He talks about, where red hair comes from. And they actually show you a printout with the gene base. It's not even a base pair. It's a single base, which is a C instead of a G. That single base is what causes red hair. That single change. And the reason I pointed that out earlier is because you will hear these creationists, and I've heard this recently in a couple of hangouts, where they will say, but you change a single base and it becomes who knows what. No, that's where we get a lot of stuff. That's where red hair comes from. But I think, I'm not sure, because they also did blue eyes. I'll have to check. I think that's where blue eyes come from, too. So you can have a single change in a base, and it doesn't destroy the organism.
I have some vague recollection of... Sorry.
For rats, where they took out a lot of the chromosomes of the DNA. And the next rat in the next generation, you couldn't tell anything wrong.
Right.
Because a lot of the stuff was junk, what they call junk DNA.
Well, you have to be careful. Let me tell you. You have to be careful with the term junk DNA.
That was the term I heard used.
Yeah, but it's misrepresented by creationists. The guy, what you need to do is you need to go look back at the history and look at the guy who had originally used the term. Scientists tend to use terms that make sense to them, and sometimes they're pretty funny. There is actually I think it's a spider whose scientific name is Abracadabra. Because scientists have sense of humor too. And if you look at the Big Bang Theory, that was actually a slur tossed at the people who believed in the expansion by the people who believed in...
It was coined by Hoyle, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was that...
That's a Jewish word, isn't it, abracadabra?
Yeah, it comes from that, I think, or
Arabic. I don't have any clue. I think it might be Arabic in nature, but I'm not sure.
But they're both Semitic, languages. I'm not sure, but yeah. But the people who were in favor of the Big Bang Theory just sort of took it on, saying, "Yeah, we're the Big Bang Theory." And so when you hear scientists talk about nothing, it doesn't necessarily mean the nothing you're thinking of, or when they're talking about junk, it doesn't necessarily mean what you're thinking of. When he said junk,
hang on a second. I want to point a few things out here right quick, because we are referencing Big Bang, which was coined by Hoyle in terms of mocking the current viewpoint. There are some other views that Hoyle had that I've heard Christians try to promote, while not acknowledging the fact that he also believed in transpermia. He thought that life here was seeded by aliens.
Oh my God!
And they'll say, well, he was a creationist. Well, yeah, in a manner of speaking, he believed we were created by aliens.
Right. He never said where the aliens came from.
Yeah, but he was still brilliant. He was really wrong about that. Yeah. But what I was going to say is,
Gabriel put up a translation or what abracadabra is.
Oh, okay.
In the side chat.
That makes perfect sense, because he says abracadabra is Hebrew diminutive for "by my words I create." And think of that. People were saying magic. Abracadabra, it happens. I mean, it's just perfect.
Yeah. It came to pass as it was spoken.
Right.
But before we just to go slightly back, because I could be wrong, but I have some vague memory of reading something where it said, I think only 2% of the world's population are gingers.
It's a very small percentage.
Yeah, well, I mean, hang on. Here's my theory.
It's a recessive gene.
Well, here's my theory as to why only 2% of the world are gingers. Now, we all know gingers have no souls. So I figure gingers are only born when they're out of souls in the collection.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Had to do it.
The reality is it's a recessive gene.
It's a recession in souls.
No, yeah. It's recessive souls. Yeah, that's it.
Since we have this wide variety of people from all over the place, I have a question. Does anyone know where the expression "beat me like a redheaded stepchild" or "treat me like a redheaded stepchild" came
Annie?
from?
Oh.
Didn't it come from
Never
beat
heard
like
of
a
it.
redheaded Jew?
Wah,
It was an
wah.
expression I've heard
No.
since I was a kid. It says, "I'll beat you like you was a redheaded stepchild."
Yeah.
Yeah,
thought
I
it-
didn't.
Wow, I've never heard that expression.
Oh,
I
it's
didn't
you hear
hear
it
it.
here, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear it till I was an adult, so I guess it's not a California thing or a Midwest thing.
Actually, I got to kind of attach to that for a moment because, courtesy of Red having red hair, she kept insisting that her parents weren't allowed to get divorced and remarried because she didn't want to be a redheaded stepchild.
I mean, I remember it from when I was a kid back in the '60s. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
heard
think
it
it's an English thing, because I mean, it might be. I don't think I've never heard it before until this moment.
it may be a Southern American thing.
It might be, I don't know.
think it might be because, as I said, my family from the Midwest is not familiar with that. I grew up in Southern California. I'd never heard that. So, I don't know where it comes from. But, of course, just because I never heard it doesn't mean it doesn't exist there. It just means that I never heard it,
I think they even used it in The Wraith.
Yeah. But I don't know, I guess, because in some, I don't know, I guess maybe way back when they knew that gingers had no. I was never even familiar with the term ginger for people with redheads until I came on YouTube, seriously.
Well, no, that's not just redhead. You need to have the freckles too. Otherwise, it doesn't count.
And blue eyes or bright green eyes.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I got the blue eyes and the freckles, but not the red.
I had to back out for about a minute. I had a little issue with my computer, but I know you guys were talking about Fred Hoyle. I just want to make sure I understand this. He is the guy who came up with the 747 junkyard argument, right?
No, I don't believe so. I think that was somebody
yeah,
else,
I think
wasn't
he
it?
did.
Was it
It
him?
was one. Yeah.
Let me Google that.
I thought he was. I
Who's
thought.
your friend?
I thought he was before that.
No, but he was, but I don't think it was the 747. I think they changed the plane.
727 or something like that, but
Something,
airplane
yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it was Hoyle who came up with the airplane in a junkyard.
Huh.
Yeah.
But either way, it's when you hear these creationists say stuff like, well...
Well, the thing is, okay, but hang on, the airplane in the junkyard thing, that might be used by creationists to try and promote their shtick, but what he was promoting was the idea that aliens created life here.
I know.
And that's one thing that we need to remember to point out when people, anyway.
Well, can
Right,
I finish
and-
what I was
Yeah, go
saying?
ahead.
Yeah,
No,
but... Yeah, but especially when you hear these arguments, when it gets a little frustrating.
Why are
after
we
you
back
hear,
on
well, what were
creation?
the odds of a single protein forming by chance? And all you have to really say is, well, nobody says it came by chance.
Yeah, it didn't come by chance.
But
And
we're
that's-
off creationism. Why can't we stay off creationism and religion?
Because you have
Why?
me and Jade in the same room.
Okay, I'll throw you out then. Let's see
Okay.
now. Which one do I kick first? I'll send her to go do your yard work, and I'll send you to go up and do squid things.
No, actually, life on the Earth started way back in one of the older episodes of Doctor Who with Tom Baker.
Oh,
These
that's
aliens-
right.
These
Yeah.
aliens, there are these aliens in a spaceship, and they're warp driving and stuff, and they're trying to take off, and one of their members is left on the surface of the ancient Earth before there's any life, and when the ship blows up, the radiation gets the ball rolling for life. So everything can go back to
Well, that
Doctor Who if you think hard.
Hoyle was an atheist, apparently.
Yeah, he was.
I don't
And
know anything about him. Never heard of him till now. Wow.
It just goes to show it doesn't matter even if you don't have a particular religious belief. You can still have some beliefs in some really weird shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's true. It, there
I
are people who are atheists who believe in ghosts.
Yep.
Hey.
I'm
No.
but not the Holy Ghost.
No. For the Holy Ghost, you need Eddie Izzard running around going, Holy Ghost! Ooh, Holy Ghost! Boo! I am so looking forward to that at the end of the month.
Oh, what's his
Going to see Eddie Izzard at the end of the toward the end of the month.
Oh,
Yay.
wow.
Oh, I'm stoked. I'm thrilled.
I bet.
My wife comes to me and she's like, "Well, it's kind of expensive, but for my birthday, do you think we could go?" And I'm like, "Go where?" Eddie Izzard. I'm like, "Duh, yeah."
Yeah.
Why are you being hesitant? Yes. Not
Yeah,
missing. No.
Yeah, it was easy.
Yeah.
Xbox Fiend just mentioned something in the chat, talking about the arachnoids forming the Earth because
Yep.
the queen arachnid had her big nest and eggs, and
At the
rock-
center of the Earth. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that
it became the center because everything was attracted to it.
more new Who. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Gabrielle, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fairly well. How's everything over in your neck of the woods?
Not so great, but okay.
I know technically not so great. There's a hell of a lot going on in that area, and as you, I'm sure, very well know, the American media is shit when it comes to covering such things.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're to be honest with you, the American media is shit at covering everything. But
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was complaining about that earlier in a different sense. But
See,
for
you guys
people
are making the
if I could
false
bring up-
presumption that American media contains news.
that's a very fair point.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Um,
Absolutely true.
Well, I was going to actually ask you a question, and I'm going to totally change the mood in here. And if somebody brings it back to creationism, I'm going to beat them upside the head and neck.
That makes it so tempting.
The squirrel will bite them in.
I have the eject key, but
So creationism.
well, shut. Okay, I'm getting that eject button ready. I'm not kidding here.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah, pretty much. But here's a question. We've heard a bit about this group that's, for all intents and purposes, taking over Iraq. And all we're getting, all that we're hearing is, well, even Al-Qaeda's disowned them because they're, but we're not being told what the hell are they? What is their ideal? None of this stuff's really, we have no clue really what's going on in that whole region right now. I mean, I know there's some kind of revolution of sorts going on in Pakistan. There's this stuff going on in Iraq, and are you guys in Israel hearing about what's going on there, or do you have some kind of understanding we don't?
Well, from what very little I've been told, and they don't tell us a whole lot. Or not, I mean the media, but I'm currently in the Army here,
Yeah.
and they don't tell us a whole lot, especially me, because I'm the definition of a peon, basically. And what little I've been able to hear and kind of ascertain is like the main going theory right now is most of these armed groups, they're taking over certain towns and cities in Iraq are they're basically a front. They're paid representatives of the Pasdaran, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Oh.
So they think it could be some type of bid on the part of Iran to seize parts of Iraq. Which would make sense because they wanted to do that for a long time.
Yeah, it's
And now's a
interesting.
great chance to do it.
Yeah, and at the same point, they're sitting there condemning this group that's involved in Iraq, while at the same point insisting that they're not planning any military action.
Yeah, see, that makes sense because one article I did read connected this group with Iran, and I was like, that's Iran. Why are and they're Shiites, and the Iraqis are Sunnis. What's going on here? So that makes sense that it would be sort of a Iran, plotting to take over part of Iraq. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, because we get sketchy information, and that's all I got. And I was trying to put that together in my head, somehow connected to Iran.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and I wonder how much of a threat this is to, not merely, our allies overseas, as the term usually goes. The allies that will support one day and not the next.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it necessarily means in terms of, on a world scale. It disturbs me. I just have no idea.
Well, the big, the question that everybody should be asking themselves is, how did it get to this point, to begin with? And, it's very, very easy for me to rail on American foreign policy now that I've just renounced my U.S. citizenship. But the reality is that the only moves that America makes in the Middle East are bad moves. It has never done anything intelligent here. The reality is
I would tend
that
to agree.
Saddam Hussein was not a threat to the United States. He wasn't even really a threat to us in Israel. We didn't really
But he had oil.
He had oil, sure, and now Iran is going to get that oil if they seize Iraq. and they'll control more than half of the world's major oil supply, and they'll control that part of the Gulf where the majority of the world's oil passes through what's called the Strait of Hormuz there, and they can shut it off anytime they want to if they seize the other side of that canal.
Now, in terms of dealing with Iraq, if we were even to do that, my thought was always that the most logical thing to do would be to basically take the area and then divide it amongst the neighboring nations, essentially. I thought that, as opposed to us being in there and, hang on a second. Thank you, Nodvik. As opposed to us going in there and taking Muslim lands, being the infidels in their land and thus offending them, that basically just handing it over to the nations in the area would have been, a better solution than the way we handled it. And I don't know what your take on that is, but...
Well, the best way America could have handled Iraq is to have not invaded it at all.
Well, I agree with you there, too, but yeah.
Yeah, so do I.
Saddam Hussein, don't get me wrong, Saddam Hussein was a brutal, nasty, evil man. You know what? But compared to some of the other people that exist in this neighborhood, he was nothing.
Yeah.
And so, Iraq under Saddam Hussein was a very clean, orderly. It was a first world country. People don't like to realize that, but Iraq didn't become a third world country until America bombed the shit out of it. They used to have very good hospitals, very good schools, colleges. The economy used to be much better there, and to be honest with you, Iran is a much bigger threat globally and locally than anything else. And Saddam Hussein's Iraq was a very big counterweight to that, and we removed that counterweight.
And that is why the United States supported Iraq for so long, until they decided to invade. Now, I can understand in the first Gulf War going in to kick them out of Kuwait, and we stopped there, which made sense. But then to go back under W, the idiot, with the fake weapons of mass destruction, thingy, that was just utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, I think they were hoping that they had some of the ones that we sold them still left.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, DuPont was actually one of the companies that sold them the weapons of mass destruction that they use against their own people.
Right,
at least you sold them. We gave them to them.
Yeah.
We gave them expecting them to pay for them, and they never did. Or was that another country? I lose track. But thank you, Margaret Thatcher. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Carry on.
If you're going to invade a country because they may or may not, notice the ambiguity there, have weapons of mass destruction, there's a laundry list of way better candidates than Iraq.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That war pissed me off from the very beginning.
Well, the thing that struck me, and now granted, I don't know that much about world politics and all this others. It's never been really my forte. But the one thing that became really clear over the course of the war and the massive amount of time that followed afterwards, that we were sitting there holding a tiger by the tail, is that as much as a bastard as Hussein was, he managed to keep these groups from killing each other.
Yeah.
All these groups that he managed to stabilize a country with so many people that hated each other. Now, it took an iron fist, but he managed, and
Well, that's just it. People don't realize, Bush tried to bring democracy to a region where it doesn't really have a democratic tradition outside of maybe Israel and Turkey and Lebanon to an extent. But the reality is that before the 2003 invasion of Iraq, they had already tried democracy in Iraq in the 1950s, and let me tell you how it ended. The president of the democratic Iraq was drug out of his palace, publicly castrated, and then drug around the central square in Baghdad by a donkey until he bled to death. Oof. This is not part of the world. You have to rule certain countries with an iron fist. And Saddam Hussein was very good at that. People were afraid of Saddam Hussein. Nobody's afraid of America because you play by the rules.
Yeah, that's true. And this was an argument that somebody was making in one of my hangouts the other day, and it was an uncomfortable argument, frankly, but it was one that I found myself agreeing with, which is that in dealing with some of these people, unless you're willing to be as brutal as they are, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Look at America. It took 140 years and the bloodiest civil war in human history just to achieve universal male suffrage. It's going to take a hell of a lot longer than one 8-year presidential term and a couple of well-meaning gestures in Iraq.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in an area of the world that we are completely inept in.
We're good at making enemies, though. In fact, we do have a talent for that, definitely.
Well, all we have to do is exist to make enemies. All you have to do is be the world superpower to make enemies. Just to begin with. Besides our lousy politics here, there, and everywhere, and meddling in the affairs of others.
Well, I believe it was Saddam Hussein that basically said that America wouldn't be able to go to war, and if we did, we'd end up bankrupting ourselves. And he was damn near proven right.
Right. So was Ariel Sharon. Ariel Sharon actually warned Bush about invading Iraq. He said it will destabilize the region, and it's going to end with you basically having to leave under embarrassing circumstances that'll break out into some type of tit-for-tat guerrilla warfare. And again, he was right.
But of course, we can't listen.
You better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's who really did it. That evil SOB,
Emperor
Palpatine.
My whole notion of basically handling things in terms of, after the attack of the Trade Center and this kind of stuff is, I thought that we would have almost been better off if we asked Russia to take care of it for us, because people will fear Russia in ways they will not fear us, because they will be brutal in ways we won't.
And tenacious, extremely tenacious.
Yeah.
But going after Iraq that had nothing to do with anything.
No, it didn't.
It was just George W. Bush trying to
oil connections.
Yeah, well, trying to finish what his father left unfinished, as some people said.
Well, yeah.
And being led by the nose by Dick Cheney, who was an evil SOB.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the things Saudi's been up to, but did they go to war with them? No. I wonder why.
Massive oil fields.
Yeah.
No, don't be so cynical. Sorry.
I'm not cynical. I don't bullshit.
Yeah,
No,
I agree.
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah,
darling.
she's being
Very sarcastic.
I mean, I could be cynical if I wanted to, and it'd be so easy. But
yeah, I mean, I get this. I get this whole notion in my head that if we keep going the way that we are, more and more of these countries are going to become destabilized to the point that we're at risk of war on a very large scale that we will get dragged into, and everyone else along with us.
I would like to point out this isn't
the French.
This isn't the first time we've done this,
and it won't be the last.
And there's a historical perspective that I would like to bring in here, and that historical perspective is Southeast Asia. If you look at our history in that region, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, even in Thailand, and I'm going back to practically the end of the World War II, but mostly into the 1950s. And we actually inherited the Vietnam conflict from the French, lucky us. And, Korea was supposed to be a UN thing, but has anybody here ever read the book The Ugly American? Probably not.
No, not.
Okay.
I can say no.
It was a very popular book at one time, and it's two books I think are really helpful about that time. One is The Ugly American, and that talks about it's a novel, but it involves American diplomacy in the region. Another book, excuse me, is by Pearl Buck called The Living Reed, and she talks about it takes place in Korea. Most of Pearl Buck's books take place in China because that's where she was raised. But this is about Korea, and one of the really interesting things is in some of the characters you see them taking the opposite side of the American interests, so to speak. And I'm not saying either of these books are by any means perfect or completely accurate, but there is literature out there that suggests that some people were looking at things from the other side, and realizing our mistakes. And
I mean, if you look at America, you look at your original immigrants, mostly English, French, and Spanish.
German.
Now, there's a lot of German.
Largest number of people of immigrants ever, and more people.
The original immigrants, or
no, the original immigrants were from the British Isles and were Dutch.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That the original immigrants. Yeah.
Then
You've got
after
lots
that
of-
came the
oh, yeah,
Germans.
you've also got the French. Oh right. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, Germany. I forgot you exist. No, I mean,
Yeah.
well, you've got the French and the Spanish. No, mind you, there was a kind of. Well, you've got your Ottoman, and that's Greek, isn't it? Turkish. Sorry. Oh God, that's great. Get Turkey and Greek mixed up. D. Why not? Sorry. You've got a lot of French, Spanish, English immigrants there. Initially. Now, what are we famous for?
It's fine to mix up Turkey and Greece.
Being-
I mean, I just don't see why.
Hang on. What are you famous for? Being posh?
No, fighting with each other.
Well, no. I mean, we're famous for going around to other countries and trying to colonize them.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know.
I mean, you look at English heritage. I mean, here we were all a bunch of pagans in separate tribes. Then we were invaded by the Romans, for the Vikings, the Romans again. I forget, the French. It's like we are.
Imperialism.
Yeah.
Imperialism, I
It's
believe, is the term.
Yeah.
Yeah, the age of imperialism, which goes way back then. And yeah, that's exactly right.
And now the only
Yeah.
one that seems to be doing that is the Americas. Granted, we do it by trying to install puppet dictators, etc.
I'm going to say one
Well,
thing.
we aren't as bad as we used to be. Again, historical perspective, think South and Central America. When we
Yeah.
practically ruled the Americas by installing our own preferred governments in South and Central America.
And now they hate you for it.
Huh?
And now they hate you for it.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, they do. And, that was, extremely bad policy, and we're still recovering from that. And that's like the 1960s, folks. But, so this is not our first go-round on a lot of things. But it's not just our first go-round, other countries as well. We don't really study history, and we don't really learn from it.
No.
All this stuff has been repeated over and over and over again. And for me, being born in 1950, I see this being repeated,
We don't learn from history, we learn from propaganda.
Yeah, and because I see this, again, I see this being repeated, just like I see the atrocities in Africa being repeated. If some of you may have heard of the Mau Mau Rebellion, maybe not, but it was vicious and nasty and horrific, and we see these things happening over and over and over again because we don't really study and learn. We fuck them up over and over and over again. We get slightly better. I mean, we're not as bad as we were in the 1960s and the 1950s. There's more transparency now. There's less of the movement to actually put your own puppet dictator in. So
I think as well we've got far more wide-reaching methods of reporting this. Now I know a lot of reports, a lot of news, again propaganda, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But it is easier for somebody to go over there and make reports than it was perhaps back even in the 60s compared to what we have now, and how quickly the news can get from one place to another.
Well, that's one of the things that helped Boris in the Russian rebellion, because he was somebody was with him had a cell phone, and cell phones weren't that common then. And because they had a cell phone, they were able to call. He was able to talk to the entire world and say, "Hey, this is what's happening in Russia." And that just was really different, because now you've got people with satellite phones. Going back briefly, I don't remember if it was the 1950s or 1960s. There was a coup in some South American country. I think Bolivia, I'm not sure. Anyway, the United States reported it as a bloodless coup. The idea being basically that, the people really wanted the new government in. And of course, it was a government we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, they forgot that there were people with shortwave radios.
Yeah.
So a guy in, let's say Bolivia, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but so let's just say it. So a guy in Bolivia was on a shortwave radio with a guy in the United States. And the guy in the United States could hear the gunfire. Bloodless coup, my Aunt Fanny.
Yeah.
But nowadays, that was just sheer chance that happened. And of course that got out that, there were people on shortwave listening to the fighting in the streets. It was not a bloodless coup. But that was rare for that sort of thing to happen. So if the government said, oh, it was a bloodless coup, or oh, these people voted these people in, and not, you know, bothering to mention that a whole bunch of ballot boxes were destroyed.
Yeah.
Today, that is less likely to happen because people can communicate instantly.
Mind you, I remember it would have been back in the late 80s, possibly early 90s, when there was a lot of rebellions and what have you going on in South Africa. And a couple that we knew had actually come across from South Africa, but the guy's mother still lived there. She was white South African and lived in a gated area. And he was on the phone to his mother, sort of saying, "Oh my gosh, you're right. Is everything fine?" She's like, well, "I don't know what you're talking about, darling." It's on the news, 10 miles from where she was. There was, you know, absolute riots going on. But she's 10 miles in the road in this up the road in a gated area, obviously not getting any news and totally oblivious to it happening there and then.
Yeah.
Right. But I've also heard of cases that are somewhat the opposite, where people are hearing, and I wish I could remember what one. It's in the back of my mind and it's hiding back there. But there was a case where, yeah, a similar situation where they called and said, "Are you okay? We heard there are riots, like right outside your door," and they walked out to the terrace and went, "No, sorry, everything's peaceful and quiet in the city." So it was a propaganda move to prepare for something else happening.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't remember if we were involved in that one or not. It's in the back of my brain and it's not trying to come forward. But that sort of thing happened as well. So what you do is you lay down the propaganda. You say, these people are being beaten in the streets and all these horrible things are happening. And yet, you know, someone picks up the phone and goes, "You okay?" "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about."
Well, that's kind of what I mean with like the propaganda we were getting from Germany to make us hate the Germans was, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. Yeah, this idea that doing, raping women and doing really horrific stuff.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of that too. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
both ways.
I actually spent some time doing some research into World War I propaganda because it's extremely interesting. Because
that's what I was thinking.
That may be what you're thinking.
Those little cards. You got like almost like football cards, that kind of style.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly vicious on both sides, but it was almost interchangeable because the English propaganda said the Germans were raping and women and murdering babies, and the German propaganda said that the British were raping women and murdering babies, and it was horrific.
Mm.
And as I mentioned in another hangout, I think, that this sort of thing, you know, probably happened in all wars. I just happened to investigate World War I because I sort of discovered this and spent some time researching it. But the idea was to make them seem like the enemy, so you would cheer for their death and you would want to go kill the Boche or kill the Brits or whatever. And it was a bunch of bullshit.
I mean, even after World War II, we're getting this horrific. I mean, it was horrific. I hasten to add. I'm not trying to belittle it, but look what the Germans did. Look at these concentration camps. I think, where do you think they got the idea from? English, Boer War.
Oh God, that's right. I forgot about the Boer War.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill spent some time in a, I want to say a POW camp that was operated by the Afrikaners in South Africa during the Boer War. If I remember correctly, I think he either escaped or was freed or something. There's like a really little known fact about him.
I actually have 2 books about the Boer War from right after the Boer War that were written from the Afrikaner side of view, and they are total propaganda, which of course makes them very interesting. We just happened to be. My grandparents bought this house that happened to have all these old books in it, and that's how I got these 2 books. My I don't remember who gave them. I don't remember if it was my grandmother or grandfather gave them to me because they knew I was interested in Africa. They obviously didn't bother to read them. It was just, you know, Africa. But yeah, so they, you know, according to these books, the Boers were really good folk and defending their homeland and really nice people, and it's really and the Africans were horrible and frightening and terrifying savages, and it's just propaganda.
Well, I mean, I'd like to point out that from an outsider perspective, it may seem like propaganda, but I'm sure that the people that wrote that books honestly believed that.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the people who wrote those books completely believed in it, and they were people who lived in the area and were probably pretty much immersed in the propaganda. But there's also some truth to some of these things, as there often is.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, if you look at the Zulu Rebellion, for instance.
Oh, sorry, during the Boer War, he was ambushed while reporting for a London paper, the Morning Post, but he escaped with a price of £25 was put on his head, which back then would have been a bucket load of money. So, yeah, I did not know that.
Right,
There
but
you go.
yeah.
I mean, you have to understand too, like the Dutch settlers that formed what are now called the Afrikaners, white Dutch-speaking South Africans. They did experience, a lot of, very barbaric conflict with the natives, and of course, you have an argument that they shouldn't have been there. But you got to understand also, there's two sides to every story. And, and people do like to tend to oh, these Afrikaners, they're all racist. The ones that I met actually were very, very nice. And I've been to South Africa twice. I have actually relatives that live there in Johannesburg.
But it's also a bit like the Americans here in the United States and the Native Americans.
Oh yeah, well in that case they don't really write propaganda about it as much as they just simply tend to ignore it and omit it from the official history.
Oh no, there was propaganda written about it quite a bit.
Oh really?
And some of it's actually in the Congressional Record.
Yeah, there is well, I think it did eventually happen. There was, you got this kind of propaganda that Indians would scalp you.
Yes.
What initially happened is the white people were scalping the Indians as proof of having killed an Indian and getting money for it.
Yep.
I think that was introduced by the French, actually.
But I think the Indians did end up resorting to scalping.
But I think it was
treated them in kind, as it were. Yeah.
I think it was originally introduced by the French during the French-Indian War.
That would be correct.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I thought it was. So, and the French and Indian War predated the formation of the United States.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's called the French and Indian War because it's the French and the Indians versus the British Americans at that time.
Oh yeah.
That time we were English or whatever. But then the different native tribes actually took that up as a practice.
Because it was basically a terrorizing thing, yeah.
Right.
Wasn't there some famous Indian who sided with the English and then the English double-crossed them and went and supported the French anyway, or vice versa? Oh, God. I'm so proud of my European.
There were different tribes that supported different sides depending on where they lived, etc.
Oh, and also depending upon what day of the week it was.
Now that too, yeah.
During the 1970s and the rise of feminism, there became a greater interest in women's history. And one of the things that happened is a lot of people started studying the diaries that women kept who pioneered. And it turns out, I didn't know this because I honestly at the time thought that a lot of the people, given the way we're taught about things, I thought about a lot of the people who settled the the Midwest and the West and everything were illiterate. Turns out, no, they weren't. And most of the women who went across in the wagon trains and settled all these little towns and everything kept diaries. But they weren't looked at as having any historical significance because they were written by women and they were diaries.
Yep.
Well, it turns out when you contrast what the women wrote with the official histories, things get a little wonky. For example, there's this one example. One of the ways that you became rich and powerful was to get into Washington as, a senator or whatever. One of the ways to get into Washington was to be a great Indian fighter. Okay. There was this one case where a particular man, and I have the book, I'll have to find the exact reference, went into Washington and he started to stir up. He started having meetings with people going, over here in this part of the country, this area, the Indians are murdering women and raping women, murdering men, kidnapping children, and burning whole homes, and we have to get a group of men out there, soldiers. We have to raise a troop of soldiers to go out there and fight the Indians. And so he went around gathering money to raise the soldiers to go there and become very famous as an Indian fighter, which he did. And then he became elected as a senator or something like that because he was this great Indian fighter. Well, it turns out, if you look at the diaries of the women who were supposedly in fear of their lives by these savages, they were just getting along fine with the neighbors.
Yeah.
And there's even cases of, for example, if because people had a very sustenance lifestyle, there are cases where a woman, her husband would go off hunting and she'd stay home and look after the farm and the kids and the animals and everything. And he might be gone for a month or two because there's just nothing to eat. But you get one big, good deer and you could eat for quite a while.
Yeah.
And after, her husband was gone for 2 or 3 weeks, the woman would go out and she'd find hanging on a fence near her, a quarter of a deer or some partridges or something. And what it was is the local natives kept an eye on her. They knew her husband was gone, and this was just part of their culture. They didn't interact with her because she was the other, but they knew here was this, woman with children. And after a while, they go, well, her husband's been gone for a while. Well, we've got a few extra partridge. Oh, we just killed this deer. Let's take a quarter, and we'll just hang it up there. And so the woman would go outside, and, oh, how cool. Thank you. And it was just, they did that because that was the proper thing to do. And yet you had these people trying to make a career in Washington, 1,000 miles away or so, lying about stuff just so they could kill Indians because they didn't care about Indians. The only good Indian's a dead Indian kind of thing. Even though the local people were getting along fine with their neighbors who were natives. So you do have that sort of propaganda that has been going on in this country for a long time.
Yeah, that's a classic move, isn't it? Vilifying the people you want to get rid of, destroy, push aside, whatever.
And they weren't any threat. They were the settlers and the natives were getting along fine. They each lived in their own area. They were doing fine. I'm not saying this was everywhere. I'm just saying in some locations they were getting along fine until certain people, whether it's the army or the government or individuals who wanted to make money somehow, stirred everything up and lied to stir it up. Because the papers loved the bad Indian, the savage, these evil savages that we must destroy, kind of thing. Just sold papers. So there was a lot of propaganda like that.
I think this is the point to which I asked Dee what she's singing.
Oh, I think it's a Johnny Cash song called Hey. He won't answer anymore, not the whiskey drinking Indian nor the Marine that went to war.
Ah, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Johnny Cash.
For those of you who don't know, Dee has what she once characterized as musical Tourette's.
Musical Tourette's.
Singing.
Yeah, you remember that, Dee?
But it only affects me for Disney songs.
Oh.
Actually, I don't know many of those. Apparently, my husband described me as syncopated earlier today.
Syncopated?
Oh, I said that. He's quite right, yeah.
Well, that's better than pixelated.
I'd rather be syncopated than pixelated.
And I mean the old-fashioned use of the word pixelated, not the...
what's the old-fashioned use of pixelated?
Oh, no, see, the word pixelated means a little touched in the head, and it basically meant... Oh, yes, it comes from pixie, the term pixie.
Oh!
Because, you know how fairies would muddle the brains of people?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. So you've been affected by the pixies. So you're a little pixelated. And it's spelled differently, I believe, than our pixel. It's not computer pixels, it's pixelated. Been a bit touched by the fairies.
Pixelated.
Just a little touched in the head,
Yeah.
That's a very old-fashioned term. It's always been one of my favorites. Of course, now pixel means something else, so it's,
I'm sure you guys have seen these documentaries that try to make mythical things real. Did you all see the one on the fairies?
No!
No, I've not seen any of.
They got the best one was the first one, the one about the dragons. Then they had the mermaid one, which wasn't so good.
Oh, the mermaid one was so fucking terrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but the fairies one was actually pretty good too.
Huh. Did they cite those two little girls that took the pictures of their cutouts that later admitted it on their deathbed and presented as real?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was going to say, I know back in the Victorian days and when... Oh, who the heck wrote Alice in Wonderland? I can't remember his name.
Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, Lewis Carroll.
Yeah,
Reverend Arthur. Yeah, he was quite into the idea of fairies, wasn't he?
And I have to say, you have to love the BBC here sometimes, because years ago...
What do you mean, sometimes?
Well, most of the time.
Sometimes.
I don't, I'd have to say, You know,
Oh,
On rare occasions.
but years ago, I heard an
Get
interview
behind.
with a woman on BBC Radio who really believed that fairies were real. She was convinced that fairies were real, and it was an absolutely charming interview. I don't know if you can find it online or not, but you know, BBC maybe you can. And it was really charming. Oh yes, the pixies, the fiddle fairies are like this, and somebody said, "Well, are there fairies in Africa?" So, oh yes, there's fairies in Africa, and they're black, just like the Africans.
Oh.
Yeah, but she was really one of these charming, slightly, shall we say, pixelated women.
Touched on the
Well,
head.
the thing is now, we can establish whether she was eccentric or mental. Was she rich or was she poor?
No, I think she was comfortable, but she wasn't.
Oh,
You
so
know,
that
she
she was a
wasn't
bit eccentric then.
Ah, okay.
Basically, it's simple. If you're exceptionally rich or even quite comfortable, you're eccentric. If you're poor, you're just a nut job.
Yeah, she was.
Medical fact, that.
I would call her a true eccentric. You know, one of these people who, other than their eccentricity, get along fine in life.
Yeah.
You know, and it was.
I adore eccentric.
Yeah, I. Not eccentric myself, but anyway.
Maybe a little.
I'm a little eccentric. I'm a lot eccentric.
Yes, without the money part.
Yeah, well, I am comfortable.
Oh, okay.
I own my own home, and it's paid for, so that would
Yeah.
make me comfortable.
Same here, but that doesn't make me all that comfortable.
Yeah, well, in California it would.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just so much fun listening to this woman who really believed in fairies, and it was the way she was talking was so cute.
Ooh,
Yeah,
what's
when
that
they did their
smell?
whole thing on Loch Ness and they kept showing that photo, you know, the one that the guy's like, oh, that's a toy submarine with such and such attached. You know, and he admits this later in life, and at the same point, everyone's still like, oh, no, this is the first picture taken of, oh, you idiots.
You know,
Oh.
I actually used to enjoy all that stuff. I used to enjoy cryptozoology, and I used to enjoy all the oddball fairy, mermaid, unicorn kind of stuff. But frankly, cable TV has ruined it for me.
Yeah, I
Fiction
mean-
unicorns are the next one on the list to have a fake documentary.
Yeah, that, and let's not forget the textbooks that they have in certain states like Alabama and Kentucky, in which they talk about when we found the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yep,
Oh.
it's a plesiosaur, and we found it.
Yeah, it's just
Really?
See, it was fun.
No, I wish I was kidding. No, this is actually
no,
textbooks.
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. And and by the way, there are sauropods living in Africa. They've been seen.
Oh yeah, the Macaulay
They're
Membe.
called by some weird name. I forget.
Yeah.
Moku. Okay, there you've got it. Can you say it again so people can?
Mokele Mbembe.
Yeah.
That's easier for you to say.
Sorry, talking of eccentric ladies, has anyone seen the film Gardens? Grey Gardens?
No.
Of two eccentric sisters. Let me Google that and see what I can. It's a beautiful film.
Never heard of it.
No, it's The Secret Garden. That's not what I'm looking for.
Now that I've seen.
Yeah,
Hey,
I've seen that.
My phone
Ah,
just
here we
told
go.
me I won $3,000 in grocery discounts. Too
Oh,
bad I didn't
okay.
pass that.
Yeah, Grey Gardens.
Yes, that's great. That's
Yeah.
a wonderful performance by Drew Barrymore.
That doesn't sound right.
Oh, I don't know. The one I've just linked had starring Edith Big Eddie Ewing and Bouvier Beale.
Oh, that's a different one then.
This was.
Or is that the names of them?
They're real. Their names in real life. They were the Grey sisters.
Yeah.
And computer, will you wake up, please?
Hey, 13.
Scroll, damn you, scroll.
Hang on. What's up, RJ?
Oh, my
I have something
computer's
to send you.
refusing.
Do you want me to send
Hang
it
on.
through Skype?
Sorry, RJ?
I have something to send you. Do you want me to send it through Skype?
Yeah, go for it.
Hang on.
Why would it scroll down that page? How bizarre. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Grey Gardens. I can imagine you, if you haven't seen that. Becky.
I know, Jade. I know, because my name says Becky. It has to-
I know.
I think I had Brian call me Becky once because of that. You know, because
If you, I was gonna say, if you haven't seen that film, I could imagine you really loving that film, Jade.
Oh, the
Yeah,
little
that may, I
Wondershare
may be
logo.
thinking of
That's
something different.
priceless.
I'll have to check. Or there may be a different film. I'll check it out.
What was that, 13?
I said, and we even included the Wondershare, I see.
Yes, I did. I took out the natural one and put in a better one.
No.
I couldn't help myself.
Well, in theory, I could end this hangout at any time, or I could just keep it randomly going. We have 14 viewers. I don't care if this just keeps going on for whenever. Don't. Yeah.
Hang on, this is off air.
No, it's on. No, it's on. I've tricked you again. I thought that I mentioned. Well, I mentioned it, I guess, before you came in. But yeah, we're running.
Oh, I was a bit puzzled when Heavy said something. I was reading the comments, and I nearly commented at the time, but then the conversation moved on. Oh well.
No. We're just doing kind of a random convo thing going on there, and whatever comes up, comes up. And I'm probably this is
not creationism.
It might as well be Insomnia Shuffle, except it's during the day.
This is a Somnia Shuffle.
Asomnia, yeah.
Asomnia.
But yeah, it's just basically random hangout during the day. The one that I actually wanted to have, I've already had. This is probably going to be killed afterwards, just chilling out. If anyone wants to join, they can ask, blah, 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 this kind of thing.
Oh, well, we can kind of tie creationism in with science fiction a little bit.
If you want to.
The Genesis bomb. Genesis from...
the Genesis device thing?
Rathacon.
Yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah.
What?
The Genesis effect.
Well,
Genesis
yeah, but that didn't work. It made the planet super accelerate, made Spock grow too fast, and then the planet just started breaking apart, so clearly it didn't work right.
Yeah.
The Genesis device.
Yes.
That had to have been one of the best Star Trek movies.
Activate the Omega 13. Anyway.
That's all that.
I haven't seen any of the new Doctor Who actually. I think Matt Smith was the last one I saw.
Yeah, I haven't seen the newest one yet either.
I guess it's not on Netflix yet.
Oh, speaking of, how are you doing? Did you finish Orange Is the New Black Tea?
The only complaint I have is that I've watched it all.
I
And
know.
now there is no more.
Oh, I love that last scene.
Yeah,
And you know what? I didn't know who the bank robber was. I didn't get it in the beginning. I don't know if I missed the cues or what.
Bank robber. No, I didn't actually. I was quite surprised to discover.
I thought it was so cool, though, the way it ended.
Yeah. How did it
That was
end?
great.
My memory's atrocious.
Oh, you remember that they were coming back from the cancer treatment and spoiler.
Oh
spoiler,
yes. I'm with you. It's all right. I've got, just saying that is enough for me to catch up.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind. I don't have to say anything else. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yes. And I think Mary Steenburgen is going to be joining the cast next year.
Who's that?
Oh, she's an excellent actress. Let's just say that. But I don't know who she's going to play or anything like that. But no, this was a really good series. Yeah, I had to hold myself off from watching it all at once.
Yeah, I mean, I had to, because my memory's appalling. I watched the first series again to catch up. So that was kind of fun because it meant it lasted a lot longer for me than watching the second series.
Well, and there was a surprise, a little bit of a surprise too from the last. I mean, we kind of knew everybody was still going to be there, but you remember the way one ended with and the way she got out of it, I thought was interesting. It was completely accidental, but interesting.
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be based on a true story?
Yeah, well, loosely, yes. There really was a woman who fell in love with another woman, and who was a drug dealer, an international drug dealer, and who, when she was arrested years later, told on her, because everybody told on everybody apparently, and she ended up in jail, even though she was engaged to be married at the time. So, yeah, that part is,
It kind of reminded me, there's another film, which I forget what it was called. It's a tad twee, but it was very good. That was also based on a true story. It's all to do with if you get busted, you almost have to give somebody up, don't you? For
yes, to get.
What's the thing called? Because the film that was made. Sorry. It's not just plea bargaining. It's something else that because the film I watched was a woman who'd been going out with a guy who turned out to be an arsehole, and she'd thrown him out, and she hadn't had anything to do with his drug dealing.
Right.
But he mentioned her, and she ended up doing stupid amount of time, and she got kids and stuff as well. It was like It's good for, and I think because she was the one that started writing to, you know, to the, not the, to the government. There you have it.
Yeah.
I was going to say to the House of Commons, but that wouldn't really get very far. To the Senate? I don't know. I forget. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there used to be a guy who lived in our neighborhood who was a really bad guy. He think he had committed every crime, including, you know, rape, child molestation, and murder. And he dealt drugs and he did all sorts. He was a very, very scary guy. Even just looking at him, he was a very scary guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I saw him occasionally in the neighborhood because I had a friend in the neighborhood who was friends with his sister. And apparently he came from a very nice family. He was just a psychopath. The thing is that I couldn't figure out for the longest time, until I found out from my friend the whole story, is how he kept getting out of jail, because he kept being arrested for all these serious crimes. He and another guy stomped 2 guys almost to death, for example, and the next thing you know, he's back out on the street. Well, it turns out that he was like a major snitch. And so, and it really freaked me out and pissed me off that the police would allow this total psychopath to wander the streets just because he would snitch on other people. The danger he presented to the community was immense. I had an interaction with him, which was very scary. I had this little apartment attached to the garage that I rented, so when I rented this young guy, and he wasn't real smart about who he invited over. He invited some people I knew for a long time in the neighborhood over, and I told him, don't hang out with those guys. They've got gang connections. They're not so bad themselves, but don't hang out with them. And he invited them over, and they brought this other guy, mostly because he was their dealer, and they were really high at the time, because I yelled at them later about this incident.
Yeah.
And they were, well, we were just kind of really wasted, and we were like, hey, you want to come with us? And I was like, you knew better. So anyway, they ended up back there, and something happened, and this guy who had a volatile temper, the psychopath, had a volatile temper, and he punched my tenant so hard in the mouth, he literally split his lip open.
Ooh.
I mean, you may have heard of that. This literally happened. And I found out about this because I had, I was listening in the living room, listening to music with my headphones, and I didn't know what was happening. I see people like knocking on the window frantically. I'm, what the fuck? And because they weren't like making a whole ton of noise or anything. They said, you got to do something, you got to do something. And I took one look at him and I said, oh, I've got to take him to the hospital. And I did. And then I asked what happened, and the 2 guys I knew who were brothers were standing there really frightened, and I just said, I'll talk to you two later. And I, shoot everybody out. They went to the hospital, And I chewed them out later, but I was so mad. I was so mad at this happened that I saw the psychopath on the street. I'd always been kind to him, polite, because he's a psychopath.
Yeah. It's
and, and I just lost my temper. I chewed him out up one side and down the other.
Giggity.
Madder than hell. And he just stood there and took it and walked. And then I later thought, oh, you fucking idiot.
What have I done?
Exactly. And I was really scared for all, because this is the kind of guy who would just go get a gun and shoot somebody because he was pissed at them.
Yep.
And I was really, really scared. But fortunately, it didn't last too long, because about 3 days later, I saw him on the street, and he'd always just kind of nodded, yeah, okay. He was like, oh, hi, Jade, how you doing? Come to find out, he really likes strong women.
I was going to say, he might just have liked the fact that you stood up to him and gave him.
He did. He didn't take it from men, and I knew that. He would not take it from a man, but from a woman. That got his respect.
So he was a sub, okay.
I was just, he must have been. And he was really nice to me after that. He even said, oh, wow, like something fell off a truck, he'd offer it to me, and I declined kindly. But, and he was really nice to me.
Please, a gift for the mistress. Please, you must take.
Almost, but I was just freaking lucky. I was
lucky, yeah.
Lucky. And I talked to my friend about it later, and she laughed, and she said, "Yeah, you didn't know that?" And I said, "No, I didn't pay too much attention to him." And she said, "Yeah, his mother and sisters are like that. They're all real strong women, but he has brothers and sisters."
Strong women breed psychopaths.
Well, no. The other members of his family were just fine. There was just something really wrong with him.
Yeah.
But that was just really interesting. So he respected me because I was a big, tough woman. I'm not that big, but you know what I mean.
Wow. Yeah.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically. So that was just, but that was one of the scariest moments in my life. For days wondering if I'm going to get shot or stabbed or beaten or whatever.
Well, do me a favor. Just say "rar."
Rawr!
There we go. Okay.
But,
on a much, much, much smaller scale. And I'd forgotten about this until I can't remember if it was a Ram Campbell video or some comment. So he was going on about how nobody, if he was in a biker club, nobody would dare go up to him and tell him what he thought. I can't remember exactly the details. And it reminded me of many moons ago when I was collecting for charities and I was going around pubs. And I went to one of the biker pubs and I sort of went up to a group of them and I was like, I'm collecting for I was collecting for children's homes, I forget which actual. And he just looked at me and went, "No, fuck off." And I was like, and without thinking, I just went, a polite no would suffice. And you know what, as you say it, I'm thinking, oh my God. Yes. And then it's like, he just cracked up and instantly put some money in. But it was just that, I was like, a polite no would suffice. And in my head I'm going, oh my God, Dee, what are you saying?
But you made him laugh, and that counts for something.
And that's good. But there are those moments that can be absolutely terrifying like that. Yeah, for once I thought my temper was going to get me killed.
Well, Dee has this kind of a voice and mannerism. I still remember that time when I heard you always talk about they was trying to make you think of somebody. Oh yeah, he was such a twat. I can't say it like she.
She has the kind of tone that makes you want to thank her for insulting you. That's what you mean, right?
Yes. Wow. Oh, I'm blushing.
Aww.
I just keep remembering that one.
Does this mean if your camera was on, your wall would be glowing?
Yeah.
Oddly enough, even though I feel myself blushing, I don't go red in the face. So I could actually be horrifiedly embarrassed, feel horrifiedly embarrassed. But very few people would know because I don't blush.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ears don't turn red?
No.
Oh, I do. My ears turn red. I blush all the way down to my nipples.
Wait a minute. But Dee, does that mean you're too British to actually have coloration in your face, or?
Well, no, not really. I mean, the only time I blush from my chest upwards is after,
I don't need to know.
Yeah. I'm saying, thank you, darling. That was fun.
The right term is afterglow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Oh, I should bear that in mind. But yeah, if I'm horrified, even as a child, when I was like, you're mortified as a child because your mother said something in front of your mates, I just don't blush. I feel like I'm blushing and I feel red in the face, but I don't actually.
Oh, and I really am, believe me. Of course, I start a little red to begin with, a little pinkish. I'm a bit pinkish to begin with, so it's not a long trip.
Oddly enough, I sometimes get a little rosy cheeked when I'm not feeling very well.
And if it's cold, if it's very cold outside, my nose and my ears turn bright red, and the rest of me fades to white. I could be used as a signal lantern.
Rudolph.
Yeah, exactly. Except add the red ears. Of course, I have long hair, so you usually can't see the ears, but yeah. Just bright red.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else is watching the chat on the channel. I had to walk away before yelling at Sasha. Some of the things that boy says. Holy crap.
In a little bit. I was looking up Pearson's Puppeteers from Ringworld.
Oh, I love Pearson's Puppeteers. Yeah, Ringworld. Larry Niven.
I said
Yeah,
ringworm for a minute.
yeah.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Oh yeah. Hey, well, here I go, swinging things around again.
Nah, all good.
But I remember I think Ringworld was the first of his novels that I read. And I'm like, wow. If they made this into a movie, of course they'd have to change the ending because if you've read the story, you know the ending is kind of slow and boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole concept is just like, wow.
Oh, isn't it though? I mean, but the thing is that they then returned to Ringworld and stuff like that, although that wasn't as good. But you know, you could do a whole.
The Ringworld Engineers was the second one.
Yeah. You could you know, you could do a whole TV series on Ringworld.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the entire
And then the Known Space series.
And the
novels and
Bandersnatch.
short stories. Yeah. Oh.
I want a Bandersnatchy.
That sounds so dirty.
Yes, it
does.
does.
Doesn't it? I want a Bandersnatchy.
I thought it was just Bandersnatch. Oh well.
And you do it very well. I'll let you lick my boots.
Was that boots?
That was boots. Yeah. Boots. It has a T on the end of it.
I know. I was teasing you.
I thought of bootlicking. That reminds me. I need to get things squared away and do the next game session at some point.
That involves bootlicking?
No, one of the last ones did.
Okay.
Things we didn't bring up in, oh gosh, I forgot his name. We had a couple hangouts last night that were just really bizarre.
Oh, I've had that happen when I've been in hangout after hangout, and I forget which one is which, and where I was, and what I said.
Well, Eve had that insanely long one. There was just a bunch of drunk folks having fun, and I'm like, yeah, I can't drink. I'm getting out of here.
Okay, that was part 2, I think. Carlton's hangout was part 1, and by the end of that, everyone was pretty snockered except for me. I thought. So we continued it over at Eve's.
Oh, was it Eve's hang? Oh, right. I've seen
her,
that. I wasn't in it, but I saw
last
it.
night, that was part 2. Carlton's hangout was part 1.
Oh, this was last night, because I know there was one. I haven't seen that. I saw one from a couple of days or a week so ago.
Eve did one last night. I don't know if Carlton's put his
Yeah, I tend to have sober hangouts. I must be doing something wrong.
I'm not sober.
Yeah, Carlton specifically said, lying with Carlton.
Hang on, Dee, did you just...
with Carlton.
Well, hang on, Dee, did you just say that you're not sober?
I might have said that.
Okay, so if you're not sober, what does that make you, British?
I might be a little bit tiddled.
Tiddled.
A little tiddled.
A little tiddled. I may have had a glass or 2 of red wine.
A bottle or 2 of red wine? Not bad.
No, jeepers, if I'd had a bottle or 2, I'd be in the hospital having a stomach pump. I'm not very British when it comes to alcohol. I have neither the head nor the stomach for it.
You can't be from that close to Ireland and not be able to handle a bottle or 2 of
Sadly, when it comes to that, my British heritage fails me miserably. I have neither the head nor the stomach for vast quantities of alcohol.
I thought that was more of an Irish than a British thing, but okay.
I said you can't be from that close to Ireland.
Yeah, well, the English are quite... But I think you have to be a football hooligan, perhaps. I don't know.
Becky, somebody did, or Jade rather, somebody did a poem about you in the chat.
Oh, really? I haven't written out. Yeah. Oh, no. I'm not in there. I'm making more gopher cages.
Oh.
Which is why I haven't gone out. I know I said I was going to go out and work in the yard like an hour or so, a couple hours ago.
3.
But yeah, but I decided I had this.
The red-nosed snail had a very shiny shell. If you ever saw it, and if you ever saw it, you would even say, "Holy hell!" Sasha says there needs to be more atheist-ish drinking games.
Perhaps so.
Oh, Lee Mitchell says Ringworld is a fantastic book. And he's got
the atheists have to be careful when making drinking games about theists. Like when it comes to Side 10, trying to say, take a shot every time you hear, how do you know? It's just very dangerous.
Oh,
sorry if I hurt anybody's ears there, I do apologise. Wow. Are you absolutely sure?
Yep, I get you some alcohol poisoning too.
Yep.
And if you're watching G-Man, would it be how many times he says while he tries to make up some?
Or he acts. Well, yeah. There's talk about having a there might.
You've muted yourself, Booby. Becky.
Booby?
Becky knows why I said Booby.
Oh yeah, problems with the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Boob mute. Yeah. You can hear me now, though, right?
Yeah.
It went deadly quiet there.
We can hear you now, and then you said nothing or went quiet.
Okay. Yeah. I actually was.
I love having y'all on a hangout. I get to sit back, relax, and hardly say a word.
Yeah. But yeah, there's because G-Man is going to do that quote unquote debate with Epicurus. I always want to say curious, and it'd be kind of fun to have a little drinking game over that one. Because that one could be dangerous if you pick something like or axe.
Axe. Oh dear.
Axe.
I don't know. It's one of those weird things. Whenever I talk to Epi, I wonder if he were to smoke, if Epi would be smoking Durals.
Yeah.
Somebody got it.
Epidural! That's what, yeah.
If G-Man's the subject of the drinking game, it might be almost safe to say every time he skips a verse in between two verses when reading out of the Bible, take a shot.
Ouch.
There we go.
Or pretends verses don't exist after he's already had somebody else read them for him because they're inconvenient.
Right.
Hermeneutics.
I've never seen someone promote
Or
the
is that
Bible so much that was so completely and entirely ignorant of its contents.
Agreed.
I see that all the time.
Yeah, but G-Man is, and when it comes to the Bible, is incredibly ignorant in terms of what's in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had never heard of hermeneutics.
And yet he tells you to.
No, I haven't actually.
And he tells you to read it and do what's in it. It cracks me up every time I hear him say something like that.
Uh-huh.
And Judas hung himself. Go thou and do likewise. Random thumbing through the Bible.
Did he?
Well, no, I mean, going, like randomly going through the Bible.
No, hang on. The Judas thing is being referenced because there are different death accounts in each gospel.
Yeah.
Very different. That's why.
It was a joke I heard somewhere about, just go through the Bible and try to find out God's will. So turn to a random page that says, and it's something about Judas hung himself or hanged himself or whatever. And then, okay, well, let me try another one. Then it says, go down and do likewise.
See, I mean, I'm fairly ignorant when it comes to the Bible, but the difference between me and G-Man is I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm ignorant.
Yep.
I had no idea that apparently Judas hung himself, so there you go.
Well, yeah, depending on what gospel you're in.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of the few people that travel in the same circles with him, I mean, pretty much everyone seems embarrassed that he's identifying himself in that way among those that are Christian.
He does make me proud to be an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a number of them. There's one or two out there that make me think, religion sounds interesting. I quite like it. And there's just one or two that make me think, I'm so glad I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
And as far as the work of literature, well, it's a bunch of works of literature because how many books are in there? 60?
Something
Just
like
one,
that.
and it was written by Gauda.
Oh, gosh.
But they're taken separately and individually. A lot of the different books or sections. I mean, they're really good reading as far as if you want to just consider it as literature or something. Some really have really cool stuff.
Not just as literature, it's had a massive effect on society over the course of the eons, but this weird religious stuff, it's like, I don't know, for me it's just, really? Why? Why do you... And more so with the fundies, it's like, huh? What are you talking about? Now, my favorite was, of course, when he was insisting that Adam and Eve knew good and evil before eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and thus receiving the knowledge of good and evil.
So then it wouldn't make any difference if they ate from the tree if they already knew.
No. No. More so than that. Fiona. This was the first time I came across Fiona, actually, personally.
Oh, I remember that.
And and she's in there, and she's like, okay. And then you go to this verse, and it says, and then they knew good from evil. And he's like, no, they knew it beforehand. She's like, but in the Bible it says right. Not listening.
Yeah, he booted her out, didn't he? At which point I just said, I'm disgusted by your bigotry and left.
Oh, well, that's kind of a shame. You missed.
No, you rage quit.
So you missed Matthew 4:19 coming in not too long thereafter and going, brother, I'm sorry, man, but you're wrong.
No, I think he came in either before or at the similar time as because
Oh,
we'd already
okay.
been talking about it. Then Matthew came in and said that.
Yeah,
And
and
then
that was
Fiona
hilarious.
came in and spent ages trying to actually get a word in edgeways, or edgewise as you foreigners say.
Wah, wah.
Sorry.
Foreigners.
And then she finally got to speak and actually quoted from the Bible. Well, I assume she quoted from the Bible. As I say, I don't know much about it, so she could have, but to the best of my knowledge, she was quoting from the Bible.
No, she was.
At which point he started yapping on about how Catholics weren't Christians and booted her from the Bible. Booted her from the Bible. Booted her
Hangout.
from the hangout. At which point I said, "I'm not staying around with such a bigot or something like that," and left.
Yeah.
I just thought that was disgraceful behaviour, and that was my first meeting. And he'd been kind of fine up to. I can't, was it actually his hangout? I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know how I ended up in it. It was I'd never.
Yes, it was.
I was not familiar with him before, and as I recall, he'd been fairly reasonable up until we started talking about that, and then it all just.
Yeah.
Well, that's
went
because it was very easy to lay a trap for him. All they had to do was say, God, immoral, tree. That was it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't willing to let go because, darn it, he had to be right. No matter how wrong he made himself over the course of it.
Yeah, it's not so much that atheist makes me proud to be non-Christian. I won't say an atheist because that's inaccurate, but
yeah,
he definitely does make me proud to be literate.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, did you say literate or illiterate?
Literate. But
yeah, it's kind of funny that memo is
It's funny either way.
hang on. Just hang on, D. Hang on. Gabrielle, go ahead.
No, where I used to work back when I lived in the States, I worked at this factory for a while, and they actually passed around an office memo. And where I worked is in a really kind of low-income area, which is, I guess, my politically correct way of saying the ghetto. And a lot of people there never finished high school and everything, and they actually issued a memo that they were going to have literacy classes to bring new employees up to speed, and they actually spelled literacy wrong in the memo.
Oh no.
Bad time to not spell check.
Yes.
The irony was overwhelming.
Yeah.
F7 key's just so far away from your index finger. Why would you want to spell check?
I mean, this is just because we're briefly on, the notion of Bible and the apologetics and this and that. I made a comment, and I've been having fun with it since. I made a comment on a video, one of Eve's video, I believe it was, saying, that I'm considering doing some videos on apologetics just for the hell of it, because the Christians lately have been doing such a piss poor job of it.
Right.
And
Yes.
the number of people that were like, yeah, you should do that, you should do that. I'm like, are you fucking shitting me? And then G-Man responds with, why don't you just stick with your atheism?
I saw that.
I fucking died.
Dear.
Like, I don't want the
G-Man is
competition.
not doing Christianity any favors.
Yeah, he's really not.
Kidding.
Sasha says every time a Christian says God, somebody say drink.
Oh.
We died.
And also he says hermeneutics is only good if you aren't claiming the same God and claiming he's all good. Yeah.
Well, no. Hermeneutics is great as long as your name's not Herman. No, wait, never mind.
Yeah,
Bad
poor
pun.
old muted. Poor old muted Herman.
I feel like I should apologize for that one. That one was bad. But the thing is, and this is what I think is funny, is I'm sitting there and I'm helping him out in one of these hangouts, and he doesn't even see that that's what I'm doing, and I'm sitting there explaining, according to basically according to that frickin' lecture on the 613 laws and that section dealing with the laws regarding slavery. And I'm going through that and talking about how nuanced it is and this kind of stuff. And technically, I'm trying to help them out, the Christians, that is. And he's spending the whole time going, where does it say that in the Bible? I'm like, this is how the laws are regarded. We're talking about Judaic law at this point. But where does it say it in the Bible? I'm like, if you want to go strictly by what is in your Bible, then your God condones slavery and he's a dick.
There.
This is why you have to go to, things like hermeneutics. You have to go and you have to figure out, you know, what was the cultural context, what was going on at the time, blah, 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 you know, all this kind of stuff. But he doesn't care about that any more than he cares about the Greek, which is another thing he said when he decided to be a smartass. And, well, read this. Okay, fine, I'll read the fucking Greek. Read it from the Greek, you dick.
Yeah, I remember that. I think the
Asshole.
other thing is that I don't think condone means what he thinks it means.
No.
Well, that thing, the resource that 13 Heathens brought up and posted, you know, the part of the class and the notes and everything, I mean, that was stuff I had never heard of. You know, like it's more like the Jewish. If you were a Jewish slave or something, you could probably work one day or something for whatever, or if the barn needed scooping out or something, you wouldn't get the Jewish slave to do it. You would get the non-Jewish slave to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and really,
talking about all the nuances and stuff.
oh yeah, and I mean, part of it was kind of somebody's brought in from another culture, they're going to be made a slave, and if they want to become a Jew, they're given a year to do so. If they don't manage to successfully do so, the master is blamed, and he has to give them to onto a new master to start the process all over again.
Wow.
I mean, there's all this different stuff that, there's so much there, and it could be safe that you could realistically make the argument that stipulating the existence of a God, that God was like, these people don't listen to me anyway. I tell them what to do, and they keep disobeying, but I've given them the free will to do so. So the best I can do is just tell them, listen, this is how we're going to run this shit, because you're going to do it anyway. And using that as part of an apologetic kind of works. But no. You offer this to them on a fucking silver platter, and they're still, well, slavery's okay, and if you're working a job, you're kind of like a slave. Oh, you fucking tool!
If you sign up for the MBA or whatever they're called, you're a slave.
But yeah, and that was his argument. And I'm like, you fucking morons! I sit there and I give you a fairly reasonable apologetic on a fucking silver platter, and you reject it for the same old shit that has people tearing you a new asshole.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
And you was getting it from a reliable source. The Jewish literature and the mitzvahs and the rules. What does mitzvah mean, by the way?
Commandment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's the 613 commandments. It's not just 10, and there's 613 of them. This is the old Judaic law. And the thing about Judaic law, I hope you don't mind me speaking on behalf of Judaism for a moment, Gabrielle. But okay, well, if I fuck it up, let me know. The thing regarding Jewish law is that you don't just have somebody saying, boom, here we go, here's our rubber stamp, here's the law. This stuff's written down, and then you have these people debating about it for ages and ages. It isn't just like, here we go, this is set in stone. I mean, this is something that's constantly discussed and modified and debated and all this other stuff as time goes on. They're not stagnant.
Right, you can't, because you have to apply this ancient law to new situations as they arise. That's the whole idea behind it. The idea, this whole thing that people like G-Man, they're like, oh, where does it say that in the Bible? Well, if you actually look, the idea that these laws are supposed to be debated on and then mutually agreed upon by the elders in each community, it's actually found in the book of Exodus. Now, you're supposed to take judges from every city and have them hash it out how these laws are supposed to be applied. This whole idea of like sola scripture, go by what the Bible plainly says only, it's not biblical. At all. In fact, the Bible, in the book of Joshua, it actually references other books that were never included in the official canon of the Bible, that Christians, by and large, do not have access. Well, they do now today. You can actually buy some of them on Amazon. But we've had, by we, I mean Jews, we've had them for thousands of years, and most of the Christians never knew that there were non-biblical books that we base a lot of this information on.
Ones like that in the New Testament.
Now, one of my favorites was that stupid argument I got in with G-Man pertaining to the devil, Satan. And I'm sitting there talking about Jewish scholarship. Now, incidentally, there's a series on learning Hebrew that's taught by some people that are Jewish, and they're of a different Jewish perspective than Gabrielle. So there is, of course, some disagreement on certain things. In this particular lecture, in referring to the Hasatan, it states that the Hasatan isn't necessarily this specific entity, but anyone can act in the role of the Hasatan, an animal, a kingdom, all these different things can take the role. And there was a slight disagreement on that at one point, but there was going to be these disagreements within scholarship to a degree, any way that you break it down. But the classical Hasatan, regardless, is a servant of God. That's basically his job. That's his task. And I got in this stupid argument with Beckel that like, well, that's not his job. And da-da-da. But they want him to be this evil adversary, and they want to go to Isaiah and Exodus and say, see. It's like, yeah, King of Babylon, Prince of Tyre. What's your fucking confusion? Oh, it drives me bonkers. All because they want there to be this literal devil tempting people. Why would God make an entity that would be defying him throughout all of... And why would he let just... This doesn't make sense in Christianity. This is one of the big things that's like, that's kind of stupid. And even going through the New Testament in the way that Jesus refers to this Satan character. For example, when he's tested by Satan, it says he is taken up and brought before Satan. At which point all these tests are administered. Well, if he's taken up on high, which is what the Greek term being used there is referring to, and brought before Hasatan, well, you're talking about him being brought before, the divine councils, the council and the Hasatan, the Satan, to be tested. You can make from this and looking through the other areas of the text, you could make a fairly strong argument that the character that Jesus is talking about is not the Hellenistic evil adversary of God as presented in like the book of Jubilee, as well as from the Hellenistic traditions that were going on within the temple at that time, but the classical Hasatan, the classical loyal servant of God whose job is to test people.
Oh no, 13, you're making me learn something again.
Sorry.
Thank you.
But, I mean, here's the thing, is a fairly strong argument could be made, especially because the Greek word diabolos being used there is not, the devil. It's one who is acting in the place of Satan. One who's taking that role of the adversary or the accuser. It doesn't mean this literal devil guy. But they don't care about that either.
Yeah, that's like a lot of stuff on the New Conan group. Dr. Jones and Bob Graves and Greaves, they start getting into the Greek and Hebrew language, and they start explaining things.
Yeah, I got my little index, and I got my little lexicon, and all this other stuff, and I've been looking this shit up, and a lot of the stuff in there isn't what people are saying it is. I mean, this whole not a jot or tittle of the law shall be changed until, whatever the hell passes on. That whole shit. Well, passes away, that's the word. Well, the pass away word there, it's not talking about something dying. The word that's quote pass away, that means to move forward in time, not to die off. Totally changes the meaning. So the laws, none of these laws will change until we move forward in time? Well, wait a minute, that's a totally different fucking meaning. It's not saying these laws will be here until the end of fucking time and the rapture and whatever the hell shit. No, it's saying that as we move further in time, many of these laws will be left aside, they won't be needed anymore, etc. We will move beyond this. Totally different fucking meaning when you look at the Greek. But Christianity's going to stick with their dogma regardless.
Well, it's like they go back to the King James Version, and that's supposedly like, this was the thing, we got it, this is correct. And
oh yes, it's a wonderful Bible until you look...
God and the King.
Oh yeah, it's a great Bible until you look at how it's compiled and realize it's one of the fucking worst, if not the worst.
And then kind of base other future translations sort of on it, because even the New International Version, different ones, they still kind of read like the King James Version at the time.
The NIV
I like how some people think where it has, I come not to abolish the laws, but to fulfill them. Somehow fulfilling them means they don't apply anymore, which would be abolishing them.
Now, and hang on. Go ahead, Gabrielle, you were just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, people, I hear the argument all the time, like, if I say, like, well, you're reading from a King James Version translation, and look, I can read the original Hebrew. The King James Old Testament is basic, a lot of it is basically guesswork, and in some cases it's actually outright copy, edit, pasting, changing things to make it more convenient for the author.
We should get the original Hebrew, put it through Google Translate, and see if it's better than the King James.
Oh!
That would take a while.
We should get the Hebrew, translate it to Greek, then to Latin, then to English, and see how it reads.
No, we already have that book. Sorry, I want to give the mic back. I want to give the mic back to Gabrielle because I've heard him speak to this before, and he's got some great points.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I hear people say that all the time. It's like, why don't they use the King James Version? It's like, do you realize you're using quite literally one of the worst possible translations? I mean, The New Testament in the King James is even worse. That's basically straight up guesswork. They just took it from an earlier translation and edited it to make it sound a little bit more fanciful, and that's basically all they did to it. But then I hear other people like, well, you can argue against the King James version, but I use the NIV. I was like, okay, that's great. Would you rather have cancer or AIDS? You know, they're both terrible translations. There's no such thing as a good translation, honestly. And there's no such thing as one that even gets remotely close.
Yeah, what I've been told, and I'd like to get live confirmation of this because I think we mentioned it before. I'm not positive, but I think we got into this at one point. But with the way that the Hebrew is written, with basically the no vowels, etc., it seems like there's a lot more interpretation that you can have with the way it's written, that it can speak to an individual differently based upon one's individual read of it, as well as that of reviewing that of how the scholars interpret it.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. I just wanted it, that officially stated, because I've gotten into arguments about this before, and they're like, oh, well, blah, 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 where's your evidence? It's like, I've talked to people that are Jewish. I know more than one. Granted, Gabriel happens to be the one on YouTube.
Right, well, people, they especially like to argue, certain passages in Isaiah, and they're like, well, that's not actually what it says in the Hebrew, and then they accuse me, like, well, that's because the rabbis changed it. They changed Isaiah. I'm like, no. The church changed the book of Isaiah, and I can actually prove that, because the book of Isaiah that exists in the Jewish Bible today matches the Dead Sea Scrolls Isaiah, which is 2,100 years old. It predates Jesus by 100 years.
Well, yeah, but the Dead Sea Scrolls are only proof of anything when it's convenient to Christians. That's part of the problem.
It's not very convenient. It's not a very convenient set of documents for them, to be honest with you. They can try and twist certain things to make it sound like it is, but the reality is it does not present. The Dead Sea Scrolls is actually a very harmful case against Christianity as far as what the original meaning and understanding of certain things are.
Yeah.
Oh, Lee Mitchell in the chat said, please, more of this kind of stuff, 13 Heathens, it's great. It is.
And I disagree. And I actually disagree with that statement. And I know this is a weird thing for me to say when somebody's, acknowledging the fact that, I bothered to do a Google search and go through link after link until I found something that it was actually useful and informative. But ultimately, that's what it is. And there are times, especially when I go in these hangouts and confront some people, that I come across as some kind of authority with great knowledge. But ultimately, I try to look for legitimate scholarship. Because if somebody's presenting something and it just seems like total crap, I'm going to try and figure out what it is. And there have been occasions that, I'll read something and I'm like, I don't know if this is accurate or not. And I'll bug somebody like Gabrielle and say, hey, what about this kind of thing? For example, when I put that lecture up, after I put it up, I asked Gav if he'd listened to it. Well, I actually commented on it, I believe. But I commented and I said, is this pretty much the understanding as you get to it? Or there's, this. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Because, I'd like to get the extra confirmation. I don't, I go out, I do my research, but then at the same point, I want to talk to people and see if this is their experience or their understanding of it and this and that, and I cross-reference things and cross-index, because to me it matters. And sometimes I think some of these things regarding theology seem to matter more to me than the people that claim to be of some of these theologies. And I have to give credit to people that are of Jewish heritage for giving more of a shit about their own texts and their own beliefs, and I really wish the Christians did more of that. It seems that for such a large vocal group that the majority of Christians are so ignorant as to their own beliefs and their own texts and where the shit comes from.
Yeah. But they won't listen. They won't listen to that when you talk to them.
Occasionally you'll get one to admit that it's kind of like an institutionalized ignorance. I remember I was speaking to it was actually a guy who was visiting here with a school tour, and he was a pastor at a Christian school somewhere in Toronto. I don't remember exactly the name of the school, but and I was talking to him, and he wanted to know where he could go to learn Hebrew, and I gave him, I think, a website and a couple book resources and things like that. And I was like, don't they teach this at the school, the Christian school? He's like, oh, no Christian school teaches Hebrew to kids. I was like, why is that? He said, well, because then it may cause them to start questioning their faith.
Yeah.
It was like an outright admittance that
It's like especially from the fundamentalists that we run into here. I mean, not talking about all Christians, but the fundamentalists that we see here, they will not. It's like they're so afraid to question anything. You know, it's like it's a mortal sin to question their belief or something that may not make sense because it might make their faith crumble all at one time.
Yeah, I mean, just in the prior hangout, I got in a borderline argument with Bruce regarding Jonah and Abraham in a way because he's sitting there and they were getting a little bit in that whole divine command notion, and I'm like, Jonah didn't simply hear a voice and say, okay, I'm going to do what you told me to. He's like, no, man, and eventually he was forced to comply. And then you have Abraham who's like, well, sure, but what if you find 100 good people there? What if you find 50?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, God in the Old Testament isn't this unreasonable dictator. You can kind of negotiate with him a bit. There's leeway there. He listens.
Ezekiel did it.
Yeah.
Ezekiel objected to having to eat stuff cooked over human shit, and God was nice and said, okay, you can cook it over cow shit instead.
It's weird, but
Head slap.
I'm serious.
Yeah, well, but I mean, even then, there is a level of negotiation. There is haggling. God can be reasoned with. He's not, but the Christians have him as, he is God, you must obey whatever he said. No, fuck that. No. Where the hell does it say that in the text? Not really.
I think she's having one of them moments again.
There's a difference. Well, there's the difference between honoring your proverbial father and just being a obnoxious sycophant. Why would God want a bunch of sycophants? I mean, this view of humanity almost being like an ant farm. Just what the fuck?
Yep.
It's more nuanced than that. It's more interesting than that. That's just pathetic.
Dark Matter 2525 did a little cartoon about something along those lines where he got tired of the Christians doing the same thing. Oh, God, great God, and all this and bowing, and they're doing all this, and he says, I'm sick of y'all, go to hell. And then he brings all the atheists up to heaven.
There's this little whimsical part of myself. Yeah. Imagines, God up there. Die. Atheist, non-believer, whatever, holding out judgment, if you want to put it that way. Hey, come on in. Wait, I thought, isn't this supposed to be like the Christians or something like that? Oh no, they're annoying. What? No, we don't allow them in. They spend far too much time putting judgment on God by dictating what they think he is like, kind of thing,
I think, I'm trying to think who it was. I'm sure more than one person's come up with the idea of, one of these days when they predict rapture.
Mm-hmm.
All the atheists and perhaps just generally non-Christians should all just hide and leave a pile of clothes somewhere.
Yeah.
All the Christians they're like, hang on, we're the ones that have been left behind.
Shortly after I got out of Christianity, when I was going through my Wiccan phase, I heard a nice joke that kind of fits in here. A Wiccan dies and goes to the afterlife and is being given the tour by a man in a suit going through. Well, he gets up to heaven, and the guy in the suit's like, so this is heaven, this is pearly gates, this is where we're going to be staying for a while. And he goes, well, I don't get it, I'm Wiccan, shouldn't I be going to Summerland? And he's like, yeah, but we just bought this real estate, we're going to have to put you guys through to the other side here after we finish building. And at that time, the smell of sulfur fills the air. A big old crack opens up in the ceiling and opens in the floor. Flames starts shooting through it. A whole bunch of bodies start falling from the sky down through the hole in the ground. This goes on for about 2 or 3 minutes and closes up. And the Wiccan looks to the guy in the suit and says, "What the hell was that?" And the guy in the suit says, "Oh, that's the Christians. They'll never have it any other way."
Oh. Yeah.
And then there was one where a guy finally accepts Christ on the deathbed and he goes to heaven, and instead of the Christian God, it's Allah,
Mm-hmm.
And basically it boils down to, he's trying to go, well, wait a minute, isn't that right? And then Allah goes, to hell with you, Christian dog. That was one of those, what if you're wrong things.
Yep. Now, of course, I like my What If You're Wrong video. It's very scriptural. If I'm wrong, then I am Hasatan, come here to chosen to come here to make you question your faith. No, not literally Hasatan, but acting in the role. And that's where that discussion, that brief discussion and disagreement was, because I'm like, anyone or anything can act as a Hasatan, and it was kind of like, well, Hasatan's kind of a specific role, and I'm like, well, I can kind of act that way though. And this was, but it's theological differences within the Jewish community, because the initial video I watched talking about this, which was a Learn Hebrew thing, presented it a little bit differently. But I mean, every religion has some differences of opinion here and there, and the scholars can't necessarily agree on everything. And I think it's important for people to figure out what speaks to them from an educated standpoint, instead of just pulling shit out of their ass like some of these idiot apologists. Oh, sorry.
It does get frustrating.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I mean, the moment that I realized that I seem to be better at apologetics than the apologists makes me really disappointed. And I go back to that idiot on my doorstep earlier today, and I'm Christian, you know what that means? Oh yeah, I know what that means. It means that you're going to sit there and promote doctrines that you don't even understand. I got in a conversation with a Christian the other day, and we were going back and forth, and the concept of the soul came up. So I went through and I started talking about what I refer to as the divine puppeteer notion, which is, you are essentially the soul manipulating the body, but while you are manipulating that body as the divine puppeteer, you are limited to the understanding of that body, to the mind of the body, to the perceptions of the body, and you have no knowledge of what you would have as the puppeteer themselves, because you are in this role, and all you know is of this role and from this role. And I'm explaining this, going through this whole thing, explaining the whole entire notion to him. And he goes, that's really weird, I don't think I understand this. And I'm like, oh, I'm explaining essentially what the soul would be if this notion of the soul was accurate, you're essential. And I tried to explain it again. He's like, I don't get that. Like, what? And I said to him, have you ever stopped to think, if you do have a soul, what that soul would be like, what that soul would be, what that would represent? Having to deal with an earthly body. And this notion of the divine puppeteer actually settles a number of problems, like you get brain damaged and you don't believe in a god, or your morality shifts, or what have you, because it's the puppeteer, not the puppet, and the puppeteer is limited by the capabilities of the puppet. And I'm going through this whole thing, and I don't get it. Had never given a thought to what a soul would be, what it'd be like, or any of this other. None of these things had given any thought to. It was just a fucking word on a piece of paper.
Yep.
It floored me. You believe in a soul, but you've never thought about it. Okay, great. And you're telling me I'm not spiritual? Yeah. Yeah. I'm dead of the spirit, am I now? Fuck off.
Christians tend to get really shocked when I tell them that I think Muslims are actually closer to what Judaism says than Christianity says. They tend to get all pissed off when I say that. But the reality is Judaism and Christianity have very little in common. We have like a book in common, of course, but the way they interpret it is entirely different. The reality is that Muslims are actually a lot closer. And every time I tell that to a Christian, they get all hot and bothered and pissed off.
And from what I understand, there's actually quite a number of things that were radically and most likely deliberately changed between, the Pentateuch and the Tanakh and the Old Testament, as we refer to it as. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is it? The whole thing with, and it pierced his hands and feet, and this is one of the many prophecies fulfilled. No, it's lions at the hands and feet.
So yeah, Psalm 22. Yeah, it's a very common. Yeah. Like, it's talking about Jesus, talking about piercing his hands and feet. I'm like, no, it's not. The word pierce doesn't appear in this at all. In the original language, it says, they circle my hands and feet like a lion. Ka'ari, like a lion. And the King James, you can tell where they deliberately did that, because every other time the word Ka'ari appears in the King James Old Testament, they translated it correctly, except for Psalm 22.
Mm-hmm. Well, then there's the whole thing with the, 2 or 3 hell references in the KJV, as well as several others. Hell's not in the Old Testament. Yep. It's just not there. What the fuck? Well, nope, you gotta add that in.
What was that? Gehenna and Sheol, I think, were the words in the Old Testament. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sheol, yeah, but that's a euphemism for the grave.
Yeah, and the concept of hell that we get from the King James Version or the New Testament is not right. That was my opinion.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct in that. When they're referring to Sheol, I believe it was like trash pit or something like that at the edge of the town or something like that.
Gehenna.
But yeah,
That's the other one, Gehenna. Yeah.
Yeah, Gehenna.
Yeah.
It's actually the valley of. It means literally the valley of Hinnom, which is a valley just northeast of Jerusalem. Actually, southeast of Jerusalem. It used to be a trash dump in ancient times.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And that's got the Guyana, you said.
Yeah.
Gehenna.
Okay, I was told that was Sheol as well. What's Sheol then?
Sheol, it's just a general euphemism for the grave or the
Okay.
afterlife. It's not like a
okay.
specific heaven, hell. Or,
Okay, so it's not something that really has a more direct translation than like it. Okay, cool. I like learning things too.
Yeah, and that was one big thing I heard about the hell that we have come to know, the hellfire and damnation and eternal torture. It's sort of not quite in the original Greek or something. It's a I don't know, bad or
But I think
mistranslated or something.
I think one of the issues is that so we've got something.
Okay, I have.
What happened?
Sorry, I have somebody commenting that I've not come across yet. I'm going to have to take a look and see who this person is.
Oh.
That's kind of fun.
Dee, did you get cut off?
Oh, okay. Just somebody else that has, what, it looks like it's another atheist that knows more about the text than the Christians do. This is not a rarity around here.
MJT 532?
Yeah. I don't know whether they're actually an atheist or potentially secular Jew or whatever, but yeah, they seem to have a little bit of knowledge themselves too. Congratulations for knowing more than most of the people we deal with on here.
Yeah, see, stuff like that I have no clue on.
and I'm just learning, you know, and as I said, I mean, with me, and I admit this readily and openly, a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. I've got Google. I don't mind looking shit up. If I don't know something, I want to find out. I don't want to sit there and just pull crap out of my ass. I want to go and see if I can find some reasonable scholarship. And frankly, on the internet, it's hard to find. And the reason why is because there's so much Christian glurge out there. I mean, you get to the whole thing with, he went up on the mountain and he wrestled with God. And you go to see the interpretation of this, and what do you come across? You come across 8 million Christian sites that say,
Well, it wasn't really God he was wrestling. It was actually an angel. We think it might have been Gabriel.
oh, you morons, it's a metaphor.
Yeah, MJT said he wasn't atheist.
Yeah. But, oh my word, it boggles the mind. It's like, okay, it says wrestles with God, so you need to make this he was literally wrestling with someone, but no, it wasn't really God, it was actually the angel Gabriel. Oh my word! Why? Why can't you just say, well, this is of course metaphor, because naturally nobody could wrestle with God and kick God's ass.
True.
They can't go there. No, he literally wrestled. Oh God. Oh.
I've got a whole bunch of these little note cards, files, things in.
These make my brain hurt.
I've got all these note cards with definitions of things. I really need to get back into it and study, but I've been collecting definitions of stuff.
I'm turning your volume up. There we go.
Was it too low or something?
Yeah, you were a little bit low. I turned you up.
Oh, okay. Well, this microphone is only about 10, 12 years old.
Nah, you're turned up here with the rest of us now.
Yeah, but all these definitions are things that I really need to study over and learn more. You know, like the humanetics, however you say it.
Hermeneutics.
Hermeneutics, yeah. And
think of it this way: Herman is nude. Hermeneutics.
Oh, that's a scary thought. Herman Munster nude.
You got it.
But anyway, but like you said, using Google, try and look up stuff and learn more about things, really helps a lot.
Google is your friend.
No.
I have said that so many times.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go through and you have to really look, because chances are what you're looking for, it might be on the first page, but usually it's on the 8th or 9th. And I don't mind going, 15 pages deep to try and find a decent resource. And when I find one, you better believe I bookmark it, because finding it a second time is going to be a bitch. But there are decent resources out there. You just have to dig for them.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a shame because, yes, I mean, it's great that everyone gets to have their voice on the internet, but some of these people need to shut the fuck up and get educated first.
Yeah.
And when it comes, you know, I can sit there and I can go through some of the Greek. I have some resources, physical resources at my fingertips that I can use for that, and I can try and figure some of this crap out. But when it comes to the Hebrew, I have shit for decent resources with that. And it's complicated. It's as complicated as the Greek, if not more so.
Mhm.
You know, and it's hard enough just trying to piece together enough of the Greek that I can get a general idea, never mind having to learn 2 new fucking languages, one of which we have no reference points with, which would be the Greek. I mean, we really, and even then with a Greek, there are certain words that are regarded as being sacred in terms of the text. That if you see these same words in any other text, they have totally, radically different meanings. But in the Bible, they mean special things.
You so fucking smash. Sorry.
There you go again.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I was saying earlier, that like the Greek, like for example, the word love, there's like, is it 3 or 4 different words that mean love,
3.
different types of love, whereas the Latin only had the one.
Yeah, there's a spiritual love, brotherly love, and romantic love.
Yeah, I think there's also admiration type love, adoration type.
That's.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual.
No. That would be the spiritual.
Oh, okay.
That'd be the spiritual.
Agape, phileo, and eros.
Yeah, eros. I believe it's. I got it. This is going to be horrible. I believe agape is the spiritual.
Yeah.
And I believe eros is romantic, but I'm probably having to do it mixed up. It happens all the time, but
eros kind of conveys the meaning of, you know, hey, can I get your number? I kind of want to bone you, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so eros is the romantic then.
Phileo was a brotherly lover.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the extent of my Greek language education.
Yeah, that's mine actually. That's all I know.
At times I wish English had multiple terms because, you know, you go up, I love you, man. Somebody could take it the wrong way.
Oh.
Only when they're reading it transcribed.
Yep. And there's this thing that, you know, the reasons why I think the Greek had it right is because every time I see a bumper sticker on some big pickup with some big frickin' redneck ox driving it, and it says, I love Jesus, I keep thinking that they should have no homo written on it.
And it's got a rebel flag and a gun rack on the back window.
Yeah, and talking about, I love Jesus, real men love Jesus. It's like, oh, how nice for you.
Okay. Whatever.
Which brings me back to that girl I dated ages ago that broke up with me because I didn't love Jesus the way she loved Jesus. That's creepy. Bad wording.
I should get one of those websites that can make bumper stickers and have them make something like real men can perform autofellatio and put that over top of the real men love Jesus bumpers every time I see one.
Ooh. Yeah, and you see a lot of that. Real men love Jesus, etc. All this kind of stuff, and there's so many. It's funny because, you know, there's a lot of Christians that have the dirtiest minds of them all, but at the same point, there are certain innuendos that they don't understand that they're using on a regular basis. Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of that, and it gets creepy after a while, you know. Don't you want Jesus inside of you? Excuse me? No, I don't.
I've been touched by Jesus.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, show me on the doll where Jesus touched you.
Yeah.
Didn't somebody do a bunch of pictures or something like that and have these little subtitles saying stuff like that?
Actually, in terms of doing something with pictures, there's something I've been threatening to do for a while, and I haven't, in part because it's a lot of work. But I've considered doing Where's Waldo with Jesus.
Oh, Father Guido Sarducci did something like that.
Yeah, throw a whole bunch of them together, but a whole bunch, basically, Where's Waldo with Jesus hiding somewhere, and you have to find Jesus. Title it, Have You Found Jesus? Just bring it up and show the pain. They go, have you found Jesus?
Or Father Guido Sarducci.
He's here!
To find the Pope.
Behind the sofa.
Yeah.
You'd have to do like a giant picture of a city so that he could be in the sleazy motel or a prison somewhere. That's the only place people find him anymore.
Well, there's that cartoon of behind the sofa, isn't there?
It's kind of funny because, the whole Jesus mythicist thing, it's kind of this weird position that people take to some degree, but lately basically as I get to learn more about the text and the more I learn about what was going on at the time, like you have Jesus supposedly dying, then a couple of years later Paul is suddenly out there preaching to all these churches, and there's these massive churches that must have existed around about the time of Jesus anyway, so what the fuck's going on here? And it strikes me as maybe Paul, took over this movement. He lived during the exact same time as Jesus in the same areas, but never crossed paths. There's so many things that don't add up to the point that I start wondering if Paul made the whole thing up.
So what you're saying was we should start referring to Paul as Ancient Miscavige?
Yeah, pretty much. And for those that didn't get it, that was a Scientology reference.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely did not get that.
Yeah, David Miscavige took over after L. Ron's death.
Oh.
He forcefully took over, yeah.
Yeah, he usurped control, yeah. I don't know.
The Book of Ancient Miscavige, Chapter 3.
Nag Hammadi Codex. What the hell is that? I haven't heard of that one.
Nag Hammadi Codex?
Yeah. I'd have to look it up. Oh well. The only codex I generally refer to as the code, and I always pronounce it on the Codex Sinaiticus, which, they've scanned. They have it online now. Which is really freaking cool, because I can go back to I say the original Greek. It's not. It's between the year 300 and 400. But, I can go back to one of the 4 oldest intact manuscripts and actually compare it to what's in the Bible. And when you go through Acts, there's one area where it's talking about, kicking at the prick. And it exists in the King James, the New King James. In the actual Greek, no, not so much. Matter of fact, it's not there at all.
Doesn't even have the resurrection in there.
I haven't double checked that. It might, I don't know. I'd have to check. I believe it does.
The Nag Hammadi Codex is a document that was found in an Egyptian village in 1945 called Nag Hammadi, and in it they found manuscripts for a lot of other ancient, early Gospels and letters of Paul that didn't make it into the New Testament.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's actually a really cool.
Whatever happened with that parchment they supposedly discovered when Jesus was referring to his wife?
There's a few different ones.
Yeah, they found one recently, like within this year.
Well, yeah, I don't know that it was necessarily found this year, around this year, but it was reported, and these things pop up periodically. And granted, some of them might be forgeries, but at the same point, what you have to keep in mind is during that particular time period, back when a lot of these books were written, and keep in mind most of them didn't have any authorship written on them, and some were, were attributed to this character or that or whatever, like the Judas Gospel, etc. But these were, well, in modern terms, they were fan fiction, most of them.
Yeah.
There's so many things that were, supposedly penned by Paul. Were they? Were they not? Who the hell knows? And these things are going to be contested for all eternity. Yet there are people that are still going to follow the ones that are in that book, even if they are completely discredited at some point in the future. That doesn't matter to these people. This is what's in their book.
Yep.
There was something I heard recently, like Paul, in a lot of his writings, he's not in Romans, I think. He doesn't say anything about Christ's life, but when he does mention like the death or whatever, it's supposed to happen at the dawn of creation or something. Something about crucified from the foundation of the world or something like that.
I said it was the dawn of Aquarius. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one.
The question, no. The real question there is what from the foundation of the world, or from the foundation of the earth. Yeah. The dub-in for that is that he was there at the beginning. But what does that phrase? What would that have phrase meant in ancient Greece?
Yeah.
We don't freaking know. But this in the way it's phrased, you'd think it was some kind of colloquial term.
Yeah.
So who knows what it actually means, but they're going to decide it means whatever they want it to mean. I mean, my favorite is when they refer back to Genesis and claim that, well, when they're using the word "we" there, that's God talking to Jesus. What?
Well,
What?
if you look at the first couple of verses in the Gospel of John, you know, it's like, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and they're saying the Word was Jesus. So he was there at the beginning.
Yeah, but that's wrong anyway around it.
But I mean, from the reading of it, you know, as you read it, try to understand what it says. That looks like that it does say that. You know?
Oh, hang on
If
a
you accept
second.
the part that Christ was the Word, you know, or something.
Which book was it again? I forget.
First part of John.
It was John. Okay, I couldn't remember which
Gospel
gospel
of
it
John.
was. Okay. I was trying to remember which
that
book it was.
Yeah, I remember that because I used to read and study the Bible a lot when I was in church. Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Just for fun.
Yes.
Literal Greek. In beginning was the Word, and the Word was toward the God, and God was the Word.
Oh, okay.
I thought the bird was the word.
Yeah, because the original, I mean, not the original, but yeah.
But, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Well, it's actually not with God, it's towards God. The Word was towards God, not with Him.
Ah.
Yeah, because
So
that
in the
was my
beginning, people
understanding.
discussed God and made him up. Got it.
Nuance.
So, yeah, I don't know. But also, word can be substituted for saying, and every place the word goes up there. So, whether it was necessarily word or saying in any of those, I don't know. But they are all logos. So, I don't know. They can all match up. But, the usage, let's see, now let's check the usage here. The word, SGM. Yeah, it's all the same basic usage, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting anyway around it. But you know, you can look at one of these things and say, okay, well, this is what the words mean. This is what the current text means. Do they match? And if they don't match, what could they have been trying to say?
Yeah, and the bad thing about, you know, us laymen, you know, all we have is just, you know, the book, you know, what we read right there, and we don't know anything, have no clue about what it means in the original language or anything.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the doctrine and stuff is based on, is what we can kind of interpret from it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's almost a question, you know, and God was the Word. In the beginning was the Word, which the Word was toward God.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't read like the King James Version. Here we go. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Yeah.
Beginning was same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. Right there, that's where they get that Christ made all things, where He
See,
had
that
an
sounds-
active hand in the creation.
That sounds to me more like it's trying to say that God spoke himself into existence.
Almost, or
Yeah.
Abracadabra.
yeah, there's certainly a level of that, but at the same point, it could be talking about people talking toward God, and this is the thing is when you're talking about toward God, it's almost implying that you're kind of getting toward God, but you don't really understand God, but He's there, and we're trying to figure it out. There's a little bit of that. I don't know. There's all kinds of different ways you could try and interpret it, and we don't really know.
Oh yeah.
But then you go on to the second verse. The same, the same was in the beginning with God. And the literal Greek there was, this was in beginning toward the God. Once again, we had that toward.
Yeah.
And the same was in the beginning with God. This was in the beginning toward the God. What? How do those match?
Yeah. What about verse 3? That's as far as I'm going to go with it.
All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. And this one's probably going to be a mess.
Well,
okay.
That's as far as I want to go with it, because I was just.
Okay, hang on. What I have in the literal here is all things through Him came to be, and apart from Him came to be, not yet even one thing which has come to be.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But the hymn was talking about God, right?
Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. So that would leave Christ out of that altogether.
Yeah,
But that was one
just
of the doctrines or whatever that I was taught.
yeah, but this
That was
isn't
talking about Christ.
Yeah, there's nothing here to indicate that this is talking about Christ.
Yeah, but that's I mean, see, that was what I had always been taught, to understand it as, and so that that can kind of show where, a lot of other people, like the fundamentalists, they read that and they accept it maybe the way I kind of took it, or even a whole different way.
And then it goes on to say that John was sent by God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jesus comes later on this thing, and John goes, you're the one I've been waiting for. And then it goes on a little bit further, and Jesus is taken up on high, comes back down after being tested, and then finds out John was arrested for heresy, and he runs like hell.
Oh.
So, yeah, then Jesus takes over the cult. After John is arrested. Yeah, at least I believe it was John that was arrested. I'd have to check 4, I think it is, where it actually has the whole taken up before devil thing. Which only exists in 2 of the Gospels, by the way. I might be wrong. Let me check 3. I don't fucking remember.
That was a real good example right there, showing like 2 different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one denomination that goes this way and one that way.
Well, it's because the Greek's fucking obscure. I mean, you go back and look at the Greek, and it's like, well, it could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean the other. But yeah, it's a freaking mess, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And you can sit there and you can pull whatever you want out of it, and in some senses, it seems deliberately vague in some regards, and yet they have this massive theology built on this book that we really don't technically understand that well.
Mm-hmm.
And what strikes me is I will sit there and I will, I'll go to the proverbial Greek, and I will look at the literal translation, and I will see all the different definitions based upon the different translation models that they have for the different terms. And then I will go to the index for the lexicon that I have. And the index is technically not an index. What it is a cheat sheet telling you where the word variances are within that. And I will write them down with a group of them, and I'll literally stare at the words on the page until, and I refer to it as a meaning kind of comes out of it. I'm sitting there literally just staring at it, trying, because it's a lot of time not in the right order and this and that, and a meaning will kind of form in my head, and I'll sit there and I'll think about it for a little bit, and after a while it'll just kind of gel up and it'll make sense to me. And what I get doing that is a lot different a lot of the time than what's represented in the text. And then people tell me that you understand the text from being guided by the Spirit. Well, which one's being guided by the Spirit? Me that's sitting there waiting for a meaning to emerge, or Christians reading the KJV? Fuck off.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, years ago I had a set of books. Now, I mean, like you hear, like there's a concordance, but then there's something else to help understand the history or something, or the culture back then. There's another word for that. Anyway, this set of books was like that. It had like, it would kind of like break down the Bible verses, but then there was a whole lot of stuff, maybe about one verse, and it start talking about history and the original language and stuff. It was a huge set of books, and I wish I still had those because there was so much information. I don't know what you call that though. But there was a name for it.
I can't think what it's called, but there was basically for all intents and purposes, it was a pastoral guide. It went book by book and line by line and this and that, and had all these commentaries from different scholars and all this stuff.
Yeah,
it was this enormous book. Yeah, it
looked like a set of encyclopedias.
Yep, and we got rid of most of ours and sent them half-price books because didn't need them anymore. We kept like 1 or 2, but most of them we sent to half price. My wife had a full collection of them that had been given to her by one of her teachers when she was getting her degree in world religion. And the funny part is that studying world religion is ultimately what got her out of the whole Methodist Church and away from, standard Christianity. And she still identified for a Christian as a while, but she didn't realize, she, as far as I know, never really bothered to crack the book anymore because she, as far as she was concerned, didn't need it because her notion of God at that point, God could communicate through any means he wanted. He didn't need that stupid book which had been so screwed up over the years. So, total change in her paradigm. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say there was a young lady. She calls herself Atheist Minority. She only has a few videos up, but they're very good. She's put a lot of thought out. But she did one like something about how to become an atheist, or if you're a Christian and you want to become an atheist, keep reading your Bible. That was her basic thing for the video. How to be an atheist, keep reading your Bible.
Yeah. A lot of people have become an atheist through that, haven't they?
That's what lost me my Christianity.
Yeah.
Who's riding high?
What in the world? What are you doing?
KD put up.
League of Legends. Okay, never mind. I don't have to worry about any kind of strike on that one.
Yeah, they're doing something weird that they're featuring there.
We should probably try and come up with another topic. But then again, it's still during the day, so I can talk religion.
Oh.
Well, I don't do it at night. At night, it's just like, different topic, fuck this.
Oh, yeah.
Who brought us back to religion? Because I think there was supposed to be consequences there.
No, this is not a shuffle.
No, you said earlier during this same broadcast that if it comes back, you were going to eject or something.
No, it's just, it kept going back to creationism.
Ah.
And I didn't feel like talking creationism. Because I'm bored with talking about conspiracy theories. And really, when it comes down to it, that's pretty much what it is.
Wasn't there like an exhibit or something like that with like scientific breakthroughs of the past 50 years or something like that? And next to the evolution one, they had an empty cage saying, "And this is the alternative theory, intelligent design, or we invite the great creator to intelligently design a creature into this cage at any time."
Oh no!
What?
Well, I don't know. I wonder what the, since we are kind of referring, or had been referring to the Old Testament, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I wonder what the biggest misconceptions are that Christians hold pertaining to it.
That it's true.
Or that it's made to be taken literally. Or original sin, or there's so much that it's kind of like that doesn't gel with anything.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the real subjects that's sort of hard to get.
The weird thing is
original sin. Like, what?
The weird thing about the original sin that I've noticed nowadays, there's a lot of Christian sects that don't believe in original sin, but they do. They think that you're only innocent as long as you're a kid, but once you reach a certain point of like maturity, you have to atone for your original sin or some shit like that.
Like age of accountability or something.
Yeah.
It'll probably be when you hit puberty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 12 for me. That's when my mother told me, "You can go to hell now. You need to be a good Christian."
Wow.
Gee, thanks, Mom.
That's.
Yeah, that was.
Anybody else play games?
What's going on?
Does anyone else play what? Sorry.
Does anybody else play games?
Games.
Yeah, like video games or something.
Never.
Never.
I used to play Tomb Raider a lot. I think I've got the first 3, and that was it. I played them on my old. I used to play it on my old G3 Macintosh.
That was the first game I ever played.
Yeah. The graphics were kind of bad compared to now, but it was fun.
They were amazing at the time,
Yeah,
though.
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's all relative.
I don't know. I thought I had a good group in here, but every time I go to take a leak or something like that, the conversation stops briefly.
Well, I was talking to my wife for a second.
Likely story.
and I brought up games.
Yeah.
Oh, I caught that. Nice attempt at the save. Yeah, the new Tomb. I actually have courtesy of the free monthly whatever the fuck download shit on the PlayStation. I do technically have the new Tomb Raider on there. I haven't played it yet, but I've watched playthroughs of it. I got to tell you, it's fucking brutal. Just watching the playthroughs, some of the stuff in there, it's like, holy crap, really?
Yeah, yeah.
This is the one where she starts off as a young lass.
Yeah, it's before she really gets her start. Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
there's a boat wreck or something.
Yeah, on this weird
I've
island
seen,
and all
I've
this stuff.
seen
Yeah.
some of the playthroughs or the beginning.
Yeah, I've got that, but I think it helps if you've got a not a joystick, a pad. So I play on the key. Well, the original one I played on the keyboard. I've got to this certain point where I'm supposed to shoot wolves, but I just keep getting killed.
Yeah, so that's the ones the versions I have is the ones that would play, using the keyboard.
Yeah, so the
And
original
for me, that worked out really good because I just load them in the computer and play away.
But yeah, it's just it blows my mind how brutal that game is. Though and what's funnier still is that they delayed it so that they could get their special additional engine added in there, the finesse engine or whatever the fuck it is, so that her hair would be flowy. And it's give me a break. Really, this is what you're going to focus on and blow the extra money on at the last minute? Really?
Have you ever played Vindictus?
No.
No.
They put, I think the amount of time that was answered at the question when they were asked, they put like 3.5 extra weeks of effort, the entire development team, into programming the physics aspect of the game engine to make boobs jiggle correctly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we've already got those in Second Life.
Yeah.
They did that thing.
I've got those in real life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, number one concern is tit physics. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, yes. Sex sells.
Oh yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, and I'm going to make an obnoxious joke, but okay, the majority of the guys that spend all this time sitting there staring at tits jiggling in a video game, they probably never really watched real tits jiggling and wouldn't know the fucking difference.
Yep.
Come on now, there's porn all over the internet.
No, really?
Oh wait, but those don't jiggle.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're more artificial than the ones in the video game. Fuck.
Mine jiggle. I'm satisfied.
So do mine.
Well played, well played.
Or of course, me being me, I'd rather watch a big belly jiggle.
Well, let's see now. We're a little bit past the 3-hour mark. Granted, we have 21 people still watching, so I'm tempted to just keep going for the hell of it and see how long till we run them all off and have the hangout so long that nobody will ever consider watching it.
Well, don't you have the game thing or the role play later?
I actually don't technically have one scheduled. I need to see if I can get some players on so I can run one. Christ. In theory, I should try to. I should do an update, but thing is, I'm at 3 hours, and I wasn't actually technically planning on keeping this one. Now, since we did get into some interesting religion-related topics, I might see about trimming some of that out and making a separate video out of it.
Yeah.
So this one I'm probably going to end up switching to unlisted, much like I do with the Insomnia Shuffle, so I'm not uploading 5 hours of fucking content over the course of a day. Hang on a second. Okay, hang on. Grey Knight. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm mousing over the person that's playing League of Legends. And you'll see KD there. That's for KDK. KDK is Notvik.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I heard a rumor that Grey Knight plays.
Would the real Notvik please stand up? I mean, come on. No. Sometimes it gives him one ID, sometimes it gives him the other. It's Notvik.
On the bright side, I've managed to drop the third ID. It no longer gives me that one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
At least that's one less.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard that Grey Knight plays League of Legends.
Yeah, I'm pretty
League
sure
of
he does
Legends
as well.
Is a very easy game. You do that and still do other things.
He's probably in there going, "Hey, is that somebody I can play with?" Nah, I'm picking.
Probably they're thinking, D, why haven't you played for ages?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to cut the broadcast, though, for those of you that tuned in. Thanks for joining. As I said, I'm probably going to switch this one to unlisted, so if you want to have access to it later, by all means, just share it via Google+, and you'll have it available to you. However, the religion-related discussion, I do plan on, when I get the time and inclination, on cutting out of here and uploading separately. And on that note, everybody have yourselves a great rest of the day, and good evening for that matter. Or good morning, depending on where the fuck you are in the world.
10 to 11 here.
Yep, and I almost clicked the hang up button. That would have done me no fucking good. I have to go to XSplit for this. There we go. Take care.